Hey, everyone. If you enjoy my audiobooks, you can also support me by becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me keep creating, and you'll get exclusive perks. Check out the link in the description to join.
My name is Dolan. I and the other dwarves originally lived in a cavern system at the foot of a mountain range. However, after some events, we ended up moving to a human-built village in the nearby wasteland. Our new life at the village was very comfortable. Having spent many years of our lives inside the caverns, the sun's light felt unsettling for us. Considering that, the village chief decided to make a residential space underground specifically for us. Also, unlike back in the caverns where we could eat mostly only snakes and insects, we could eat all sorts of delicious food here at Navalbin. Water could be used freely, so everyone in the village including us took a bath each day. Thanks to that, we were always so clean. But perhaps the thing that delighted us the most was the alcohol. Back in the caverns, we ever so rarely drank alcohol, but in the village, we could drink to our heart's content. On top of that, the alcohol here was extraordinarily delicious. The village chief forbade us from drinking alcohol outside of our underground residence though. We had absolutely no problem complying with that and have been drinking among ourselves almost every night. For some reason though, we always wind up undressing ourselves. All that being said, it wasn't like we were freeloading off the village. We did various things to contribute. Some helped in making our beloved alcohol, while some did hard labor by making good use of a dwarf's strong body. Unsurprisingly though, most of us contributed through blacksmithing. Our skillful hands have produced the majority of the weapons and equipment here in the village. Materials were easy to come by here unlike in caverns, so it was easy enough to mass-produce high-quality equipment. And because we sold the equipment for a reasonable price, merchants and adventurers alike would always be in shock at first. What? This sword only cost this much? Is that supposed to be a joke or something? You do know that something like this cost at least 5 times in royal capital, right? A particular visitor, an adventurer based on his looks, was shouting so loudly. What's going on in this city? How the heck can regular citizens hold their own against me in sword fighting? And why in blazes are there so many macho men everywhere? In that particular adventurer's hand was one of the mass-produced equipment we made. Those mass-produced ones were generally made by the dwarves who didn't have a smithing gift. Naturally, an equipment made by someone who had a smithing gift or something similar was far better. It wasn't only in terms of sharpness or ease of use, most of the equipment they made were enchanted by a skill of some kind. For example, an equipment with indestructibility would make an equipment barely lose durability, while an equipment with enhanced body would make the user's body become stronger. Recently, the dwarves with gifts have been producing these special weapons and equipment one after another in hopes that theirs would be better than the others' works. What's going on? Why is there so much noise from the workshop today? I thought so when I was near the workshop for smithing. Unlike the usual where everyone was quietly devoting themselves in their work, the atmosphere within the workshop was completely different. Dolan? We have something? What? What is it? It's 4 now, follow me this way, Dona, MHM. The one being called was Dona, a dwarf who has just recently turned 12 years old. Upon coming of age, she received the weapon craftsman gift. Ever since then, she has developed many new kinds of equipment. To name but a few, special swords that could transform into whips, prosthetic arms that could be moved like the real thing and even be used to swing a sword, and shields and armors that reduced the damage received by absorbing the shock. Apparently, that girl has made something new again. Am I missing something? It looks like nothing but a normal sword to me. However, what she held in her hands looked nothing more a perfectly ordinary sword. I couldn't help but wonder if it was again something like that sword that could turn into a whip. After Dona shouted and swung the sword, a bright light assailed my eyes while a thunderous sound assailed my ears. A moment later, when my vision returned to how it was, I saw the floor burning. What hat lightning just noted it come from the sword? MHM. Then that means no, it can't be. In contrast to me who was in shock, Dona was all matter-of-factly. Yes, I managed to make a magic sword. Chief Luke? What's the matter, Dolan-san? Why are you so flustered? To the workshop? Please come with me to the workshop? That day, I was asked to come to the workshop where the village's dwarves worked at Navalbin. Naturally, it was a workshop that focused on smithing. Thanks to their excellent talent when it comes to smithing, many of the dwarves have contributed to the making of the equipment and tools available in the village. They didn't like being under the sun, so I decided to build their homes as well as their workshop within the dungeon. A side effect of that was that it made it easy for them to directly procure materials from the dungeon. The equipment they made, even the mass-produced ones, were all of a high quality. Furthermore, they were cheap. So much so that many merchants and adventurers even suspect that the items were fake or something. Many dwarves possessed a gift called smithing. This allowed them to bestow the equipment with skills. Equipment that had skills were originally so rare that only a few were available in the world. After all, even if someone possessed the smithing gift, they would only seldomly succeed in adding a skill. Yet the village's dwarves were making these items like they were nothing special. Or rather, it was more like they were competing who could make the equipment with the best overall quality or who could come up with the newest skill. You have to take a look at this, Chief. How should I put it? I've got a bad feeling about this. I thought so while recalling what happened when the elves wanted to show me something. Dona, quick, show it to the chief. MHM. Prompted by Dolan-san, Dona presented the sword she held in her hand. It hasn't been long since Dona received her weapon craftsman gift, but she has already developed many new and innovative equipment. Anyway, the sword she presented looked perfectly ordinary to me. In the next moment though, a bolt of lightning flew from it and hit a target that was prepared beforehand. Magic from a sword? Wait, are you saying that's exactly it? This is that weapon of legends, a magic sword? Magic sword? Much like what its name implies, a magic sword was a sword that allowed one to use magic. It was obviously useful to people who couldn't use magic, but even those that could would find it useful since a magic sword didn't require magic power or any chant to activate. It was a powerful weapon without a doubt. It might even be called an ordnance at this point. I've had it appraised, and they're absolutely certain it's that. It's said that our ancestors once were able to produce such weapons, but all techniques pertaining to it have been lost until today. Overcome with emotions, Dolan-san said so in a teary voice. Mithril is needed to make it, so as long as that's rare to find, it'll be hard for us to mass produce it. We should still be able to produce some more though. Of course, those can be fire or wind magic swords instead. According to Philia-san, the Dwarven Empire from ancient times had powerful weaponry and was intent on conquering the world, only to fall into ruin by some divine punishment. It was very much possible that magic swords were one of those weapons. If it ever gets known that our village could produce such weapons, it was all but certain that there would be great trouble. Yay, let's keep this between us as well. Afterwards, I was shown the various other weapons made in the workshop. Most of them were developed by Dona. This is a shield that perfectly reflects the attacks it has received. An arrow was then fired at the shield that Dona held. At the moment of impact, the arrow curiously turned around and flew toward the one who originally fired it. What the? Of course, it reflects back magic too. While I was still in shock, Dona proceeded to exhibit another one. This is a crossbow that will always hit the intended target. The bolts it fire will relentlessly pursue the target. She then held the crossbow upward and fired it against a bird. The bolt flew straight up at first but then took sharp turns to follow the bird until it was hit. This is a small golem warrior. It will charge against an enemy and then explode on its own. Boom! What an insanely dangerous thing! There's more. This thing, through the application of magic power, can launch these large metal balls. I also have a smaller, carryable version of it. Hold up a minute. I hurriedly interrupted Dona when she said that. Did you come up with that yourself? Yes, I did. No matter how I look at it, those were an artillery and a gun. Magic existed in this world, so I thought I wouldn't ever encounter weapons like these. What's more, she made it from scratch all by herself. She even thought of engraving spiral grooves within the barrels to make the projectile fly in a more stable manner. We also have one that can fire projectiles in quick succession. You even got a machine gun? It was strange how much this girl alone has made civilization progress. And why don't you take it easy for a bit? Alright, we're leaving? Are you all ready? Yes, ma'am. The hunting group led by Selin assembled before the village's eastern gate. It only had 20 or so members, yet each one of them possessed gifts. Thanks to that, each of them were comparable to 1,000 men. Truly, a team of elites. Some of them were even double gifts. Selin had dual wield and blue magic, Cilius had dual wield and green magic, and Philia had bow techniques and green magic. Other longtime hunting group members were also part of this group. Noel, who had shield master techniques, Balrath, who had sword techniques, Rando, who had spear techniques, and Goat, who had Herculean strength. Also participating was Doriel, the paroled former bandit leader who had axe techniques. In addition to the ones with combat type gifts, people like Kurtagirl, who had the convenient gift called enemy search, also participated. I can't help but laugh whenever I see this village's war potential. Bizarra, previously a soldier of Dant the former governor, unintentionally said so out loud while smiling wryly. He was a skilled soldier himself, making him another fine addition to the hunting group. At any rate, their objective today was to search the towering mountains east of the wasteland for any possible alternative to their now dwindling supply of orc meat. Like the forest to the north of the wasteland, the mountain range to the east was also a monster-infested area. Unlike the forest though, the mountains remained unexplored for the most part. Compared to the forest, the mountains were quite farther away from the village. Just going to and from should take about half a day. Thankfully, as long as they traveled along the road that Luke built, that distance didn't matter. Wait, we're already here? Hasn't it been just an hour since we left? Like this, we might be able to make it back today. Selin was surprised by the road. They simply walked on it, yet they moved faster than if they ran at full speed along any other road. At Selon's side was Philia, observing the towering mountains. By the way, the cavern we used to live in is around there. Thinking about it now, I can't believe we used to live in such a place. The one pointing at a certain location and being nostalgic was another member of the hunting group, a dwarf named Banba. He had what was a typical body for a dwarf, short but really muscular. He possessed the gift called heavy blade techniques, allowing him to easily wield swords several times bigger than him. The foot of the mountain range was covered with thick vegetation. Starting around halfway up though, the vegetation becomes thinner and thinner until only the bare, rocky surface was there. Do you sense any monsters nearby? At novel bin at. Yeah, to the front right about 100 meters from here. I'm getting a small reaction though. It's probably just a wererot or something. Kurta, the one with enemy search, replied so. The hunting group had been briefed beforehand by the dwarves about what kind of monsters to expect in this area. The wererod in question was a bipedal mouse monster that, while somehow edible, didn't taste good at all. Apparently, the other monsters were pretty far into the mountains. The hunting group could climb and search for them, sure, but let's use those incenses that attract the monsters. Yes, I also think that's the better approach, my sister. The group decided to lure the monsters down to where they were by using a scent the monsters loved as lure. Silius Dano, why don't we make the wind blow toward the mountains? Why-ish. Silius' voice cracked while trying to reply to Philia's suggestion. Both of them had the green magic gift, so making the wind blow a certain direction was easy for them. Oh, our first joint action. Is something wrong, Silius Dano? No, it's nothing. Philia was so puzzled on why Silius' face looked so red. As for the other hunters, they simply affectionately watched the two. However, at that moment, it's here, the big game's here. Kurta shouted so. And a moment later, Selin was able to catch the shadow of the said monster as it made its way down a mountain slope. The monster had a fiery red comb on its head, had a body that was completely covered in feathers, and had a snake-like tail. Yes, it was a cockatrice. Chicken me. Back in the mountains we used to live in, there were these bird monsters called cockatrices. They look like giant chickens, except they have a snake for a tail. They're pretty aggressive creatures. They wander from time to time into our cavern, so we have little choice but to fight and defeat them. They're troublesome, but at least their meat tastes great. That was the information given by the village's dwarves about the bird monster that was sprinting down the slope with great speed. Including its tall, red comb and its snake tail, it was a little over 4 meters long. If one was struck by its axe-like beak or by its thick legs, they would almost assuredly be sent flying. Stimulated by the monster luring scent, the cockatrice let out an ear-piercing cry. Cockatrice were more dangerous than orcs. Even alone, these monsters shouldn't be taken lightly. However, upon encountering such a fiendish monster, the reaction of the group of hunters led by Selin wasn't that of fear. Instead, Instead, the hunters rejoiced in finally finding their prey. The cockatrice naturally didn't understand the language spoken by people, but suddenly being treated like game made it flinch. Swoosh. Taking advantage of that opening, Philia let loose an arrow. The arrow was heavy, but thanks to the wind that supported it, it flew straight toward the cockatrice. However, the cockatrice quickly spat at the arrow, making it fall down to the ground before it could reach the monster. When it was fired, the arrow was made of wood for its shaft and iron for its tip. However, upon coming into contact with the spit from the monster's beak, it was completely turned into white stone. I see, so that's a cockatrice's putrefying spit. If we're not careful, we'll turn into stone immediately. As countermeasure to the monster's saliva, the hunters brought various kinds of potions, but whether any would actually work remained to be seen. Boom, at novel bin at. The cockatrice began charging, but it stopped when it crashed into Noel's gigantic shield. Noel was already tall before, but after hitting his growth spurt, he became even taller. Moreover, his once slender body was now so muscular thanks to all his activities and training. His physique might even be better than an orc's now. Great work, Noel. It's quicker than it looks though, maybe because it's a bird? For now, let's strike. Taking this chance, the hunters all jumped at the monster. The cockatrice hurriedly leapt back and spat at the hunters. Unfortunately for it, the group managed to avoid the attack. It bends its head back before it does a spit attack. As long as we can recognize that movement, evading its attacks not hard at all. Having confirmed its pattern, Silius shared the information with the others. Why evade, when we can just freeze its attack? Meanwhile, Selin dealt with the putrefying attack by freezing the spit midair, causing it to fall down to the ground. Well, you're the only who's able to do that, my sister. Having its signature attack be completely neutralized, the cockatrice made a kwee sound. Additionally, any and all attacks using its beak, claws, and snake tail would have been guarded by Noel and his shield. Understanding that it was no match against this group, the monster turned around and tried escape. But it was already too late as the upward slope that served as its escape path was already blocked off. Another of that putrefying attack. We already know that pattern. No, wait, it's... The former bandit leader Doriel mocked the monster, but Belrith sensed that something was different this time. In the next moment, what came out of the monster's beak was a mist-like white breath. A putrefying breath? It'll be dangerous if it keeps breathing that out. If it was a spit attack, they could dodge it and be done. But as mist, it could continue to spread in the area and make it harder to avoid. Based on this switch between attacks, a cockatrice could be said to be highly intelligent for a monster. Unfortunately for it, the hunters had an easy solution to this tactic. Silius Dano? Why yes. Philia and Silius synchronized and made an updraft together. The updraft sent the breath attack upward until there was nothing left. Oh, our second joint action. It seems you and I have great compatibility, Silius Dano. Great compatibility? Hey, Silius. Focus on the fight. Silius couldn't help but be angry with his sister. The hunting group that went to the monster-infested area in the east has returned. Luke, look, we got some chicken meat. Chicken meat? Selin gleefully told me so, but I was only perplexed by it. The creatures the group was carrying did look like chicken given the red comb in its head, but not only did it have a snake-like tail, it was gigantic as well. If my estimate was correct, it had an overall length of about 4 meters long. The chickens in our barns were rather large as well, but this creature was 2 or maybe 3 times bigger than even those chickens. Is this probably a cockatrice? Yup. I didn't think they'd be this big. I heard that these monsters known as cockatrices had an attack that could petrify others. So, I couldn't help but wonder if even the amazing hunting group might have had trouble dealing with it. Once we figured out its moves and how to deal with them, fighting it was easy. We should be able to hunt more in the future, but for now, we managed to get 10 of them. Didn't only 20 people join in the hunt? It was quite a sight to see the 10 gigantic chickens being lined up in the village's public square. They hunted down this many with just 20 PEOP at this rate. They'll be hunting dragons like it's the most normal thing in world. Silius Dano and I worked well together. It seems we have great compatibility. Silius Gun's face grew bright red upon hearing Philius-san's words. While he was like that, I whispered something to him. You should confess soon, you know. See Khan? WWW, what are you talking about? I don't feel anything like that for P. Philius-san at novel bin at. Huh? Did I even say I was talking about Philius-san? Whatever, it's not like that. There's no sense in denying it, you know, because it's so obvious. The only one that wasn't aware was Philius-san herself. Rather than say she was just dense about such matters, it might be likely that she just didn't have much interest in these things. Even so, I believed that if Silius Gun were to passionately confront her about it, she would consent rather easily, saying something like, sure, let's go out. At any rate, let's take this chance and have a celebration. Let's celebrate the success of today's hunt. Yes, the number of cooks in the village had increased. Many of them possessed cooking-related gifts as well. Given that and the quality of ingredients here, the village's culinary level has become fantastic. There were even tourists lately who would visit our village just to have a taste of the food here. And so, these capable cooks were asked to cook the cockatrice brought home by the hunting group. By the way, there apparently was an organ near a cockatrice's throat which secreted the putrefying components in its attacks. As long as that organ was safely removed though, the rest was supposedly edible. At the moment, there were over 20 stalls set up in the public square. Each cook was going to offer their own recipe using the cockatrice meat, and the villagers were free to order any dish they wanted from any stall. Simply put, we wanted something like a food court. In order to avoid any stall from being crowded due to people lining up, orders were taken beforehand and would be delivered once ready. Because this was an event hosted by the village, the villagers wouldn't be asked to pay for today. That being said, it wouldn't be great if people ordered so much more than they could eat. To prevent this, a meal ticket system was implemented. As long as the amount of food they ordered was within the limits, it would be for free. But for anything over that, the villager would have to pay for it themselves. All the stalls seem to be offering super delicious food though. I want to eat at each one, but yet, over 20 stalls is a bit. Ha ha ha, this a dream scenario for me who has the gluttony gift? Finally, it's time for this gift to shine. Huh? I have to pay when I'm over the limit of the meal ticket? Indeed, there was nothing but great food. But isn't there a bit too much variety? Grilled chicken wasn't rare in this world, but there were even batter-coated deep-fried chicken, Chinese-styled deep-fried chicken, kebab-like dishes, and Spanish garlic chicken. That stall even has tandoori chicken wait. There's also chicken and egg oyakodon and ramen. I don't think these dishes are prepared elsewhere in this world. Did the cooks make them from scratch? Maybe the cooks should also take it easy. That aside, the food was naturally super delicious. So good. Like that, the new cockatrice meat dishes were added to the village's list of special products. Viscount Frenco, are you seriously going to attack again? Don't you learn? Having learned that the lord of the neighboring territory would once again try to invade, Viscount Daltz shouted so. Territorial disputes between the two Viscount houses were commonplace before, but the previous heads of their houses have somehow reached an agreement and prevented any large-scale war between them. However, when the current lords of both houses came to power, the relationship between the two noble houses deteriorated right away. Skirmishes between their forces have happened multiple times already. You should know by now that my mighty force is more than able to squash your cowardly soldiers. It's almost like taking candy from a baby. You'll regret attacking? Viscount Daltz confidently declared so at novel bin at. The two Viscounts have had a rivalry since they were young, since they attended the same class in the Royal Academy even. Throughout their school years, they would get into these violent fights against one another. Each time they fought, they grew to hate the other more and more. And instead of the one-on-one fights back then, it was now army versus army. My lord, grave news. What happened? A vassal assigned to the task of marshalling the soldiers for the upcoming battle hurriedly sprinted toward Viscount Daltz. As you know, the enemy has about 5,000 soldiers. We tried to gather at least as many soldiers, but the most we were able to was only 3,000. What are you talking about? There's a heavy penalty for anyone who disregards calls for conscription. Not gathering enough is simply impossible? Unable to understand his vassal's report, Viscount Daltz shouted so. It's not that people are not enlisting, it's that there aren't enough people to enlist. The population itself has dwindled, sir. What? After hearing a totally unexpected reply, the Viscount grew even more perplexed. The number of people leaving the territory has been gradually increasing, but these past few months, that rate has exploded. According to reports, as much as 50 whole villages have already left. 50 whole villages? Where the hell can all those people have gone to? I believe most have gone to that rumored village in the wasteland. A barren wasteland could be found east of the Viscount's territory. According to the rumors that managed to reach the Viscount's ears, a village was recently established there. That frontier village in Duke Albert's territory? But it's just been established, so it should be impossible to accommodate all those people. In the end, many should return back to us. The wasteland village in the outskirts of the Albert territory was left undisturbed, mostly because it was in a wasteland and people thought a settlement there couldn't amount to much. We believed so, but the village apparently has developed at an incredible rate. In fact, rather than call it a village, it might be more apt to call it a city, not just any city too, since it has developed to the point that it's comparable to the largest cities in the Albert territory. Comparable to the largest cities there? How can a recently established village do that? We don't know. We've sent people to investigate, but none of them have returned. Sometime later, the Dalt's army was defeated again and again by the Franco army. Both sides had about the same war potential originally, but because the Franco army now far outnumbered the Dalt's army, such results were pretty much inevitable. And after some more time, the Franco army finally made it to the capital of the Dalt's territory. If Viscount Dals's side focused on the defense, they wouldn't be defeated so easily. However, given that there was reinforcement on the way, Viscount Dals's surrender would be simply delayed rather than prevented. Master, we must escape from the capital while we still can. You want me to turn tail and run? Only so that you can have your revenge. If you fall here now, you won't be able to reclaim what's yours. Very well, Viscount Franco, don't think you've won just yet. I shall have the last laugh. Like that, Viscount Daltz fled from his capital along with his vassals. As for where they were headed, it was the place that contributed the most to their loss, the village in the wasteland. TL note, I don't exactly know why Lord Albert is referred to as a duke here. In later chapters, he's still a marquis. Maybe it's just a way to let readers know that the public is told that Lord Albert is promoted when he in fact refused. Please consider supporting me. You can do this either by turning off ad block for this blog or via my Patreon page. Thank you. Previous chapter. What's going on? In front of the gigantic gates, Viscount Daltz was dumbfounded and unmoving for a good while. Never mind the gates of his territory's capital, even the royal capital's splendid gates seemed shabby in comparison. Add in the walls that stretched for an incredible distance, it was almost like they strayed into a foreign superpower's dominion. This was a village just a while ago? Then, the only possible explanation is that construction of this began long ago. At any rate, this should make for a great place to plan our comeback. As you might see, sir, immigrants are flowing in one after another. If we blend in with them, we won't have to worry about raising suspicion. Truth be told, I resent that we will be taking refuge in the place that brought our downfall in the first place. However, indeed, even Viscount Franco won't be able to lay a hand on us here. Viscount Daltz and his vassal approached the gate while talking like that. A group of guards at the gate asked them a few questions, but once they told the guards that they were from the west and they wished to immigrate, the guard let them pass through without suspecting anything. Apparently, people migrating from the Daltz territory have become a common occurrence. After passing through the gate, their group saw the vast fields spread out. And beyond those fields was another set of impressive walls. They surrounded even the fields with walls? There might be 2 monster-infested areas nearby, but this place should be safer than most cities. Afterwards, they were surprised over and over again. By the gigantic crops in the fields, by the buildings the kind of which they've never seen before, by the high-quality equipment as well as the existence of potions, and by the dishes made using monster ingredients. Regardless of all those surprises though, Viscount Daltz, his family, and his vassals all managed to enter the city safely. Moreover, they were even given places to live in as well as employment. And now, to build ourselves up and bide our time, I swear, my territory will someday be mine again. Until then, savor what little victory you've had, Viscount Franco. Kukiku. Wow, a great show as always. I've seen plays in the royal capital several times before, but this one is on a level all on its own. I've seen it many times already, but I still haven't had enough. I agree. Speaking of things we can't get enough of, have you tried this thing called ramen? I haven't even heard of it. What is it? It's a noodle dish that I think is from another country. It's absolutely delicious. I've been eating almost daily recently, but since there's so many kinds of soups and noodles, I still haven't had enough. Oh, that sounds delicious indeed, but if we're talking delicious, I feel I must mention the steak made of minotaur meat. When I first tasted it, I can't believe it's of this world. Still can't, to be honest. Yeah, its juices are something else. Whether it be minotaur meat, orc meat, or cockatrice meat, the dishes in this city are phenomenal. Oh right, actually, the soup stock in ramen can be made from those kinds of meat as well. That makes me want to try that ramen even more now. Well, let's go then. While we're at it, why don't we taste other dishes as well and then compare them to one another? And before you worry about it, this city sells digestive medicine and they're quite effective, I must say. We also don't have to worry about putting on some weight because they also sell dieting potions that burn off fat. Truly, we can eat as much as we want. Oh, so that's why there's almost no fat people here. Alright, let's go eat some of that ramen. Viscount Daltz paused as though he suddenly remembered something. Did I come to this city to enjoy plays and great food? No, I absolutely did not. What's wrong? Haha, if you've changed your mind, we can just go for some hamburgers instead. I mean, Minotaur meat patty and fresh tomatoes and lettuce. Oi, wake up. Have you forgotten about the rage you felt when we had to leave our home without a proper fight? Being grabbed by the collar and shaken back and forth, the vassal slowly came to his senses. And now that you say that, don't give me that. Our goal is and has always been to reclaim our home. How does enjoying the life here in this city to the fullest fit into that? The vassal had a face that said he has completely forgotten their goal and was instead enjoying the life here at Novel bin at. One of the things Viscount Daltz thought he should do to take back his territory was to gain the support of his territory's former citizens who were in this wasteland city. However, since those people have already cast away what life they had there, asking them to help in taking back the territory was a tall order. And if the Viscount pushed too hard, there was a chance his presence in the city would be exposed, making things even more complicated. And so, their first step was to spread rumors about how despicable Viscount Franco's rule over the former Daltz territory was. A change in leadership might have led to some disorder, but generally, the state of things wasn't too different from before. If anything, it could be argued that things were better now because there was no more fighting going on. Whatever the case might be, it was irrelevant for Viscount Daltz. What mattered was appealing to the sense of justice of the former citizens. What? Really? While it's true that we left behind the place and decided to stay here, it still makes me feel bad to know that my hometown's suffering like that. Those Franco guys, what awful people? The fabricated lies succeeded in riling up many former citizens of the Daltz territory at Novel bin at. More and more of them began voicing out that they must do something about their old home. Eventually, the lies spread to even people not from there, just like what Viscount Daltz planned. I've heard that the boy governing this city has a strong sense of justice. If I reveal to him my true identity while putting on a great act, he should aid me in reclaiming my land. Considering this city's war potential, Viscount Franco's army won't stand a chance. Victory shall be mine. Ha 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 ha, what an amazing plan, my lord. Convinced of his success, Viscount Daltz laughed out loudly. Meanwhile, his vassals all applauded. When they were like that though, soldiers suddenly broke into the apartment unit they were using as their meeting place. Who are you people? What are you doing? Unhand me? Do you have any idea of who I am? Viscount Daltz, right? How did? Viscount Daltz and his vassals were immediately apprehended by the muscular soldiers. Like that, they were escorted out of the apartment and then into a rehabilitation facility. I can sympathize with you wanting to reclaim your territory, but spreading lies is another matter. The Daltz territory was the place that Belrithsan and some others were originally from. The lord, rather former lord, of that place had escaped and taken refuge into our village. Of course, we knew of their presence as soon as they arrived. If you went about it in an honest way, we wouldn't have minded looking the other way. However, to rile up everyone with misinformation is too much to ignore. For that reason, we decided to detain their group in a rehabilitation facility. After a month, Viscount Daltz was released. Luke Sama, my sincerest apologies. Viscount Daltz suddenly jumped in the air and then prostrated himself on the ground. I've been wrong all this time. I'm so sorry. As long as you understand what you did wrong, don't incite the villagers anymore, okay? No, what I did wrong is not just that. Everything I did as the lord of the land was wrong? Just because I detested the lord of the neighboring land, I waged war after war at the expense of the people? With such a foolish lord, it's only natural for the people to leave? And my desire to take back the territory wasn't out of concern for them either, it was purely to satisfy my petty pride. I'm a total scum. I wish I can go back to being a baby and redo it all over. My lord, it's not just you who was in the wrong. All we thought about was how to protect our interests, when what we should have done was give you our full support in improving the territory. The Viscount and his vassals have been reformed to an absurd degree. As usual, the rehabilitation facility's effect was too strong. Rehabilitation facility, a place to rehabilitate criminals and wrongdoers. The likelihood of reformation is increased for the targets. The now reformed Viscount Daltz began talking with a meek look on his face. Luke Sama, I have a request. What is it? Is there a chance you can help me in taking back the territory that was once mine? Of course, unlike before, it won't be for my petty pride. No, this time, I'd like to do it for the people. I want to govern the place so that I can make it, hopefully, as wonderful as your city. It's not a city though, it's a village. Unfortunately, Viscount Franco is much like how I was. I can tell that instead of focusing on developing his expanded territory now that I'm out of the way, he would just find a different land to claim. I didn't hear any resentment or animosity toward Viscount Franco in his voice. That led me to think that maybe his prediction was an objective one. I don't know how many years it'll take to reclaim the land if it was just us, so, ashamed though I might be. Luke Sama, please lend us your support. I guess I don't mind. Yes, I know, an insect like me is asking for too much weight. You'll help us? Yes, that much shouldn't be too hard. And not too hard? Viscount Franco's army has fully occupied our land though, so I fail to see how that's not too hard. Oh wait, are you bringing in the Albert army, at Novel bin at? Nope. I had zero power over the Albert forces, so I couldn't drive out Viscount Franco by using it as a threat even if I wanted to. Don't worry, I have a plan that might work without anyone getting hurt. Luke Sama, just what is this tunnel? I built it. This should take us all the way to your capital. What? Viscount Daltz was suddenly dumbfounded as we progressed through the underground tunnel. We had a fighting force of about 100, with Cellon's group of hunters serving as its core. Our goal for the moment was to traverse the tunnel until we reached the Viscount's castle in his capital. A villager with the infiltrator gift had already surveyed the grounds beforehand, and apparently, Viscount Franco has been staying in this castle ever since he led his army into the Daltz territory. The current plan is for us to emerge from the castle's courtyard. Is that okay? I don't think anyone will expect an enemy to appear there, so we should be able to proceed without much resistance. Alright, let's go with that. If we were to infiltrate the castle and then capture Viscount Franco, we should be able to take back the territory without anyone on any side getting hurt. What should normally be impossible to even attempt. Well, this is Luke Dono, after all. As ridiculous as ever, normal strategies don't work against him anymore. While those around me talked like that, we made our way through the tunnel. We're almost there. Already? Oh, only 2 hours have passed, hasn't it? Walking on foot should take at least 2 days. Through facility upgrade, I made it so that we moved faster. It consumed quite a lot of village points though. At first, I thought we should start traveling in an above-ground road and only use underground tunnels once we were at least halfway there. However, in order to increase our chances of executing a surprise attack, I decided that we should use underground tunnels right from the start. I'm going to build the staircase now, or rather, I guess I should build multiple staircases. If I only built one staircase, all 100 of us wouldn't be able to emerge all at once. Luke-sama, according to Barbara, Viscount Franco should be in this room at this time. Satin explained so while pointing at a map. Through his telepathy gift, he was able to communicate with Barbara, the one who infiltrated ahead of us, to completely see what's going on inside the castle. My lord, isn't this room your bedroom? That bastard! How dare he amuse himself like that this early in the day? By the way, the castle layout has been shared with everyone beforehand, so there shouldn't be a case of anyone getting lost. Are you all ready? On my mark, everyone go climb the stairs, alright? 3, 2, 1, go. Now that I opened the tunnel, bright light flowed in. Let's go? Yes, ma'am. With Cellon in the front, everybody charged into the castle. Everybody except me, as I was to remain here, apparently. Good grief, what a troublesome lord I have. Whispering so along with a sigh was Rudolph, a general in Viscount Franco's army. The lord he served, the aforementioned Viscount Franco, had pushed all work to vassals like him and instead enjoyed each day by snatching Daltz women. I understand he's happy that he won against his longtime rival, but there's still ruling his new and still unstable territory to worry about. I wish he'd take charge during midday at least at Novel bin at. Moreover, they had no clue where Viscount Daltz was. By the time the Daltz capital fell, its lord was already gone. If left as it was, there was a chance Viscount Daltz would attack to reclaim the land someday. But then again, judging by the state of this land, that's not going to happen so easily. Originally, the two Viscounts had about equal war potential. However, due to a sudden and massive drop in the Daltz territory's population, a large gap in power between the two sides emerged. Moreover, the population was decreasing still. Assembling an army that was strong enough to re-challenge the Franco army wouldn't be so simple. But now, it's our Franco territory that's going to drop in population. No, it's already slowly dropping. And it's all because of that new village in the Albert territory, isn't it? Rudolph had heard rumors about this mysterious village. Those rumors were all hard to believe, yet considering the Daltz territory's current state, he found it harder and harder to deny. Thanks to the geography, the village's effects had less effect on their Franco territory. However, it might just be that the effects were delayed, and a massive decrease in their population could still happen in the near future. In other words, they were at risk of sharing the fate of the Daltz territory. But with my lord acting like he is, our land might be in serious danger. Rudolph whispered so to himself as he walked along a corridor in the second floor of the castle. At that moment, he saw through a window something strange outside. What's that? A staircase? Has that always been there? It was a staircase that led underground. When they took over the place, they thoroughly searched within the castle, and he didn't remember anything like that being in the garden. Just a moment later, several figures emerged from the staircase, much to Rudolph's surprise. What? To make matters worse, the ones that emerged were armed with equipment that were not of the Franco army. An enemy attack? What nonsense is this? While still trying to make sense of things, Rudolph was hit with another blow. He discovered another staircase a little bit away from the first one he found. Much like the first one, the other staircase had people emerging from it. There's one there too? What? Another? What the hell is going on? Shite, enemy attack? Enemy attack? The enemy has already gotten inside the castle? Everyone, fight back at once. Despite being in peak distress, Rudolph managed to shout so. While shouting so over and over again, he recognized someone among the invaders. It was someone who has fled from the castle once before. Is that Viscount Daltz? Is this his army? The invaders' equipment was not matching with one another, so Rudolph couldn't tell which faction they belonged to. However, upon seeing Viscount Daltz among them, Rudolph became certain. Rudolph then noticed a person on the ground drawing a bow against him. However, as there was over 300 meters between them, he didn't worry about the arrow reaching him. Such an optimistic prediction was shattered right away. The released arrow roared loudly as it flew straight in the air. Had Rudolph not bent his body forward at the last moment, his head would probably have been blown to bits. In the next moment, he heard an explosion behind him. When he nervously turned around, he saw the wall behind him had a crater similar to those made by fallen meteorites. Wah. Rudolph has never seen anyone fire an arrow that monstrously powerful, and he certainly has never heard of anyone among the Dalt's army capable of doing so. It wasn't just the archer who terrified him though. There was a girl who defeated Franco soldiers one after the other with her 2 swords as well as the ice projectiles she fired. There was a giant of a man who sent Franco soldiers flying by charging with his large shield. There was also a lad clad in wind who defeated Franco soldiers before anyone could even see him coming. There was even a man who possessed extraordinary strength. More and more Franco soldiers were noticing the ongoing situation and quickly getting into position, yet they were still finding it hard to repel a group of at most 100 individuals. What in the world is happening here? Ha. All things considered, it's all worth it. To walk as I please in that bastard's castle. It's a shame I can't see his miserable face, but what can I do when he's such a coward and escaped? Ha. Viscount Franco had recently triumphed against his old nemesis Viscount Daltz and conquered the latter's territory. He had pushed all post-war cleanup to his vassals, and instead reveled to the fullest each day. On a certain day, he was drinking as usual in the middle of the day. He also once again took advantage of the fact that his wife stayed behind in the Franco territory by snatching another young girl in the castle and taking her to the bedroom he was using. Please sir. Kukuku, it's fine, isn't it? I'm the lord of this place now, don't you know? If you do as I say, your family will be blessed. Many of the people working in the castle under the previous lord were allowed to continue their service. However, true to his reputation as a philanderer, Viscount Franco had already laid his hands on many of the women with at least decent looks. Sir? An emergency? What's the meaning of this? While Viscount Franco was in the middle of doing the deed, a vassal of his suddenly barged in. In response, the naked Viscount shouted, "Who the hell do you think you are, coming in here without even so much as a knock? Don't think you'll get away of this easily." Sir, it's an enemy attack." "What did you say? Certainly, you don't mean it's an attack by the Dalt's army, do you? Huh? That fool? Has he forgotten already his series of defeats? Or how he had no choice but to abandon his precious castle? There's no way he could have assembled a competent army in such a short time. Well, how strong are their forces and where are they now?" In contrast to his panicking vassal, the Viscount laughed out loud. We're still not certain of their numbers, sir, but the enemy, they're already here. They've already made their way inside the castle." "What? Never mind that they got into the capital, you've allowed them to get inside the castle? And why am I only hearing about this now? We didn't know they were here until just now, sir. We've not received any report from guards on the ramparts and the guards outside of the castle that says there's an incoming attack. Such a thing was supposed to be impossible. First of all, the capital was surrounded and protected by its ramparts. The only way in and out of the capital was through the castle gate. This gate was under careful and constant watch, so it was pretty much impossible for anyone to slip through without at least being noticed. As for the perimeter of the castle, it was heavily guarded. Forcing one's way through was hard enough, let alone appearing within the castle undetected. Did they use the secret passage? We've posted soldiers there, didn't we? But could there be more? I doubt this castle has more though. They had already searched all over the castle and found the secret passage that Viscount Daltz used to escape. It should be difficult to use that one to invade now. While they were talking like that, the door into the room slammed open once more. This time, a group of people rushed in. Viscount Franco recognized one of them. "Why you? It's been a while, Viscount Franco. You really must be a fool to come back here, huh?" The man who once abandoned and fled from the castle was back, despite the fact that the castle was now fully occupied by Franco soldiers. Seeing such absurdity, Viscount Franco was quite unsure if this was real or if he was simply dreaming it. "Well, how was it? The short time you were able to have my castle, I mean. What are my soldiers doing? Everyone, come here at once and arrest this fool." Viscount Franco shouted so, but no matter how much time passed, no soldier of his ever rushed into the room. "I'm sorry to inform you, but no one's coming. We've already occupied the castle." "Wait, occupy isn't the right word. This was mine originally, after all." "Lies? How can I assemble an army in this short while and be able to take back the castle? Is that what you want to know? TCH. Very well, I'll tell you. But before that." Viscount Daltz then said something that Viscount Franco was not able to comprehend at novel bin at. "Enter the rehabilitation facility and have your rotten nature be whipped out of you. Just like what happened to me. Please consider supporting me. You can do this either by turning off ad block for this blog or via my Patreon page. Thank you. My sincerest apologies." Viscount Franco shouted so as he jumped in the air and then immediately prostrated himself upon landing. I've seen this scene before, haven't I? Much like with Viscount Daltz, I don't really get why you're apologizing, but I believe that, much like me, Viscount Daltz apologized to you and to everyone for being such a selfish, egocentric lord. Yes, exactly. My humblest apologies once again. Like always, the immediate and drastic reform of people were quite frightening. But then again, wouldn't our rehabilitation facilities make the world become a peaceful place? I've seen the error of my ways, and from this point on, I want to do my absolute best for the territory and the people. I've of course made peace with Viscount Daltz. We plan to deepen our friendship while helping one another in developing our territories. Isn't that right, Viscount Daltz? Most definitely. Let's do our best together, Viscount Frenco. The two seemed to now have a better relationship. Be that as it may, I wonder why I hated you so much. I can't quite understand it now. If we maybe tried back then to talk properly, we might have seen we had lots of things in common. Who knows, we might have become great friends. Now that you mention it, even though we attended the academy at the same time, we've never really tried to get to know another. I guess if there's anything to blame, it was my envy of you, Viscount Daltz at novel bin at. Your envy of me? You were so good in the martial arts that I've never once been able to beat you. Moreover, your physique was so manly. You were so popular among the female students back then, you know. I was manly? But if you say that, I must mention how you eclipsed me in terms of studies. Moreover, you looked so refined. So, if anyone's envious, it's me. I looked refined? No, for men, it's better if we looked like you. If I was a girl, I've no doubt. No, if I was a girl, a man like you is. Viscount Daltz. Viscount Frenco. Huh? What's happening? The two of them just stood there and looked at each other with watery eyes. Anyway, good luck to the two of you. If there's anything you need, I'll do my best to help. At that moment, the two of them prostrate themselves once more. We'd like to ask your help in building a city almost as magnificent as yours in our territories. We beg you? Aren't you asking for too much so soon? I mean, I did say I'll do my best to help, but what happened to that resolve of yours earlier? Don't get us wrong, we will still try our best. It's just that we know for a fact that no matter what we do, we still couldn't build a city as marvelous as yours. Given that, it's understandable that people wouldn't want to live in our territories. Before long, it's possible there wouldn't be anybody left. The same, of course, applies to our Frenco territory. However, we've heard of a rumor that you, Luke Sama, have built a new city in the northern region of the Albert territory, and that city could rival your first one. So, we thought that if you could do the same for our territories, perhaps then we can somehow defend against the dwindling of our population. Rather than say I built a new one, it would be more accurate to say I rebuilt it. But then again, I wouldn't mind if you took over my territory, Luke Sama. Wait, seriously, what happened to that resolve you had earlier? Our resolve was to make our territories a better place. As long as that happens, I have no problem at all if I'm not in control anymore. It's as Viscount Daltz says. The two of them have reached the realm of complete selflessness. It'll complicate things for me, so I'll have to decline. If I suddenly become the ruler of two territories, my father would have something to say, to put it mildly. That thing with the Albert territories north was somehow fine because it was a behind closed doors kind of thing. But I don't mind agreeing to rebuilding some cities. It comes with some conditions though. Conditions? Firstly, your territories will be incorporated into my village. Next, your citizens would be registered as my villagers. Don't worry though, it's just for my gift to work. On the surface level, nothing will change at all. Please consider supporting me. You can do this either by turning off ad block for this blog or via my Patreon page. Thank you. After this and that, I decided to incorporate both the Daltz and Frenco territories into my village. Of course, the ones to rule these places would still be the two viscounts. This would be just like what I did for the north. I would only build facilities and roads, but nothing more. The Daltz territory has been added to the village. The Frenco territory has been added to the village. The territories were automatically added to my village, without even using territory takeover. My best guess was that it was because the two lords already gave me their consent. In the case with the north, I only had Mitchell San the governor's consent, and that maybe wasn't enough to forego the use of territory takeover. Immediately after that, the residents of the two lands were registered as my villagers. The 47,392 citizens of the Daltz territory are now your villagers. The 83,901 citizens of the Frenco territory are now your villagers. So many? That's an entire dominion for Youthi Daltz citizens alone would have doubled my villager count. The number of my villagers increased by more than 100,000 in one go. I had about 40,000 villagers before, and now I had 4 times that number all of a sudden. Ta-ta-ta-ta, congratulations! Because you now have more than 100,000 villagers, your village has become level 10. 1 million village points have been acquired as level up bonus. You can now build more kinds of facilities. Maximum village area has been increased. The village skill body double creation has been acquired. My village level increased again. The facilities that I became able to build were nursery, 100 points of facility for nursing young children. A safe environment. Improves the effects of intellect training. Retirement home, 200 points of facility where the elderly can comfortably spend their time. Prevents senility. Maintains health. Theater, 300 points of facility where plays and concerts could be presented to an audience. Improves the villagers' artistic sensibilities. High-rise apartment building, 500 points of very tall apartment building. Has excellent security. Also has underground parking. Hospital, 1,000 points a medical care facility where patients can stay for further treatment. Abates the patient's pain. Improves self-healing. Improves the effect of medical treatment. Given the recent childbirth boom in the village, a nursery is surely going to be needed. Hospitals that can provide inpatient care is so valuable as well. I also got a new village skill. Body double creation? Does that mean I can make a copy of me or something? 100,000 village points will be consumed to produce a body double. Proceed. Asterisk yes no. At 100,000 points, it's gotta be a high-performance double, right? At the moment, I could easily spare that many points, so I proceeded to make one right away. A body double will now be produced. In the next moment, my shadow started wriggling. Before long, a three-dimensional figure started to emerge from it. When it was complete, I found myself staring at another me. So this is a so-called body double? Yes. Whoa, it replied. I did. A pleasure to meet you. I'm Luke. It's got a robotic way of talking though. The double seemed capable of talking, maybe even of conversation. It was like it had an AI. I can learn through experience, so please teach me lots of things. It seemed to have a learning function. It really is like an AI. You can also control me remotely. Remotely? How? With my voice? By transferring your consciousness into me. When I tried it out, I saw the world from the double's point of view. I even saw my real body at novel bin at. I also tried moving the double's body, and then talking. This is amazing, isn't it? Apparently, if I took control of the double's body, it couldn't give any reply. Moreover, it seemed like I could still use my gift while possessing the double's body. I also found out later that I could send my consciousness to the double even if the double was so far away. Doesn't this mean that I can send the double to some faraway place and have it act on its own until I think it's necessary to take over? Maybe I should try this out by sending it to the Dalts and Franco territories. The body double was super helpful. Thanks to it, I could do various things in faraway places, all while remaining in the village. Sure, we had roads that allowed us to travel quickly, but given the size of the whole village at the moment, it was still troublesome to go from place to place. However, if I stationed a body double at various key points beforehand, I would be able to go there instantly whenever necessary. Ideally though, I wanted the doubles to become able to decide and act on their own, without any help from me at all. To that end, they must first experience and learn all sorts of things. Fortunately, the knowledge that each double has acquired was shared to the others, speeding up the whole process. The result. How is the village chief here? I swear I saw him walking in the other direction just a while ago. Say, isn't the village chief acting a little strange today? Like, his responses are, how do I say it, awkward, I guess. Actually, you know what? I feel like I've been seeing an awful lot of the chief lately. It's almost like there's many of him. What am I saying? There's no way that's the case. Hey, I just saw something. There were two of the chief. Their face, their physique, everything, it all looked the same. Does the chief have a twin? The villagers were confused. I guess I should have warned them about it beforehand. And when I did tell them about the doubles, their responses were I see, so, it's like that, And just what you'd expect from the village chief, as though they understood things right away. Shouldn't you, I don't know, be more surprised? The chief multiplying is amazing, but it's not something that'll surprise me anymore. I mean, if we get surprised by this, we'd get surprised at every little thing you do. Will every home get their own Luke Sama now? They pretty much told me they developed a tolerance for surprises. And then, as though brushing it all aside, some expressed to want their own double of me. I had no idea what they would use it for though. Asterisk, a copy of Luke Sama? I want one. But the only way to get one will likely be to stealthily abduct Ithe. Asterisk. For some reason, Milia was breathing hard. I didn't know what it was about, but I felt like it would be better if the body doubles kept their distance from her. Afterwards, I once again stationed the doubles and let them act independently. Much like before, I had instructed them to contact me if the villagers requested something from them or if they just had any concerns. Apparently, my doubles and I could communicate over long distances through a telepathic link of sorts that was not unlike Saturn's. Also, I could easily locate the doubles anytime on my map since they were represented by a star. If you have trouble in making a decision, feel free to ask me. Okay, understood. I did say to contact me if you're having a problem on a decision, but a double had contacted me. Anyway, what's it about? I don't know whether to accept or decline the request asked of me by some women of the village. I'm gonna need you to be more specific. Actually, it might be better to hear about it myself. I'm transferring my consciousness to you right now. I transferred my consciousness over to the double and soon realized what a mistake that was. I should have looked where on the map the double was beforehand. What I saw upon assuming control was a warm, steamy room. The visibility in there wasn't great. And yet, I could still see many naked bodies at novel bin at. Yes, it could only be that place, a public bathhouse. Worse yet, the double wasn't in the men's section. Rather, village chief, let me wash your back. No, let me do it. Hey, you two, don't go stealing a march on me. I'll be the one to wash the chief's back. The ones talking in front of me were some of the adult women in the village. Although I could only see the half of their bodies that wasn't submerged in the water, I could tell that they were totally naked. What am I, the double, doing here? And why am I, the double, also naked and in the water? I didn't know which one of them I should allow to wash my back. Or is it better to not choose anyone? That's not the problem. In the first place, why did you enter the women's bath? But they said it's alright for the village chief to enter the women's bath. It's not alright? Well, we're all here, so why don't we all wash his back? That's an excellent idea. Oh, huh? Village chief? As soon as I could, I got out of the bath and escaped. Oh, what a cute bottom he has. Please wait a moment, chief. No, I want. I then built an underground tunnel and exited the women's bath through that. The unprecedented childbirth boom in the village was still ongoing. Considering the number of people immigrating to the city at the moment, this boom was likely to continue for some more time. So, to somewhat deal with that, I decided to use 1,000 village points to build a hospital. Hospital, a medical care facility where patients can stay for further treatment. Abates the patient's pain. Improves self-healing. Improves the effect of medical treatment. Ordinary illnesses and injuries could be instantly treated through the use of potions, so we could afford to have majority of the hospital be used for maternity-related care. Given that this move would further help lessen the illnesses and pain associated with childbirth, the pregnant women were sure to be pleased. Nurseries would be next thing we'd need, probably. VVVV village chief? You've got to hear this. On a certain day, Bale, a former bandit grunt, rushed toward me. Being a former bandit, he was imprisoned in the village's jailhouse. His stay there was longer than most though. Regardless, he was now working as one of the village's guards. He was deemed not a danger to others, but that perversion of his that baffled even Granny still remained. I'm not doing anything wrong. Just let me do what I want to, he protested. What is it? What with the hurry? It's the old bat. Granny Nima? What's with Granny? Nima was the old lady whose recommended occupation was to be a torturer. There were now other villagers older than her, but she was the oldest when we first started. Given Bale's flustered state, I worried that something might have happened to Granny. She was healthy for her age, but the fact remains that she was old, especially for this world. Just when the anxiety was about to overwhelm me, Bale continued. The old bat, she's pregnant? Excuse me? For a good moment there, I didn't comprehend what Bale just said. After all, Granny was over 60 years old. Even with the help of the technology in my previous life, conceiving at such an age was difficult if not impossible. Yet, what's more surprising to me was, hey, Bale, maybe it really was a mistake to let you out. Huh? That's quite an unforgivable act. You know I can't believe you would do that to Granny. Wait, no. It's not me. Why are you so convinced it was me? Just so you know, the one to impregnate her was her husband. Oh, I see. Wait, isn't her husband almost 70 or something? That surprised me as well. How can he even get it up at that age? And for Granny of all people? You don't have to say it so bluntly. And so, along with Bale, I went to see Granny in the apartment unit that she and her husband was living in. Granny, I've heard you were pregnant, but surely, she is? Hello there, Gramps. In an overly excited voice, Gramps greeted us like so. Behind him was Granny. Why, it's the village chief. Aren't you busy? You didn't have to come all the way here. Wait, you're really pregnant? Apparently. I did think something strange was happening to my body, but never would I have though it was because I was pregnant. I didn't believe it myself until my stomach got big. By the way, the couple already had and raised 3 children. Those children had grown up and left home. At the moment, they were not in the village. Hey, Gramps, how'd you do it? How'd you make Granny pregnant? I mean, hey, Bale. This guy really lacked tact. Have you heard of the hotel in the underground district of the village? Well, I begged Granny to go there and we did it after a long time since the last one. I also drank the elf's erection potion. It surprised me how effective it was. We ended up doing it 5 times because of that. Goodness, you were like a wild beast back then, dear. Later on, elderly couples who heard of Granny and Gramps' story also tried conceiving. Luke-sama, I think you should consider building a castle for yourself sometime soon. One day, Dan-san suggested so. Huh? A castle? Yes. While the estate you're living in now is magnificent, when compared to the tall buildings surrounding it, it looks almost common. Even if you say that, the one I'm living in is more than spacious enough for me. Certainly, amidst the tall apartment buildings and whatnot, my home didn't look as grand. However, since it was ordinarily just me, Milia, and Selin using it, it was, if anything, too big. Well, there were the body doubles now too, but still. However, if the growth of the village continues at this pace, you will need more people to share the duties of governing the entirety of the village. And after a certain point, I'm afraid your estate won't be enough. Apparently, the suggestion to make a castle wasn't just in consideration of my living space. Will the village's growth reach that point though? Honestly, we were already too big at the moment. I couldn't imagine us getting so much bigger at novel bin at. By the way, in regards to who was in charge of what, they were as follows. The one in charge of affairs with other towns and territories was Dan-san. The one in charge of affairs within the village and the villagers was Belrith-san. The one in charge of commerce and industry was Brookley-san. The one in charge of public order and perimeter defenses was Satin. Brookley-san was formerly a merchant that belonged to the North's most prominent company. He was part of the founding family and have reached the rank of vice president, yet he still chose to step down from that in order to work here in the village. Anyway, how to solve minor issues were left entirely to their judgment. To be frank, I was pretty much an outsider in each area. Oh, and I also made a body double follow them around so that the doubles could learn more things. Furthermore, the number of important people paying us a visit would increase in the future. It might be seen rude if we don't let them stay at a castle. It's not like I'm wishing for more nobles to come though. In the first place, I wasn't a lord or a governor, I was only a village chief and this place was just a village. Actually, I don't think we should assume more nobles will come. Viscount Daltz, Viscount Frenco, and Governor Mitchell might disagree with you. I should mention that those three have already expressed their wish for you to build a fitting castle as soon as possible. So, it wasn't just Dan San who thinks I should build a castle. When you put it like that. Persuaded, I decided to build one. Well, I wanted to, but when I recalled the list of facilities that my gift allowed me to build, the closest one to a castle was called a palace. A palace is fine, right? Will there be a difference? Well, won't know till I try it, I guess. It's just 500 points anyway, it's not that much. Plus, if I upgrade my current home from being a large house to being a palace, it'll only cost me 300 points. Alright, but before I do that, I should probably clear some space. I assumed the palace would be 3 times as big as a large house and then moved the surrounding buildings accordingly. Luke Sama's first cast leaf, it's all the same, isn't it better if the castle's bigger? Yeah, you should clear more space. At this rate, it'll be smaller than my parents' home. Nah, this much is enough. I mean, a village chief having a castle is strange enough, it'll be stranger still if mine ends up being bigger than accounts. I turned down Milia and Celon's suggestions of making the castle bigger. Consume 300 village points and upgrade the large house into a palace? Yes * no. The moment I chose yes, the large house began shaking. Not a moment later, it grew bigger. What I expected was for the palace to stop getting bigger once the space that I reserved for it have been occupied. And it did, technically. For some reason though, it continued to grow taller and taller. It got bigger that way? Before long, what appeared was a building that could be called a skyscraper. I had upgraded my large house into a palace. I had assumed that the large house would expand up to 3 times its original size, so I reserved space for it accordingly. This way, it would be as large as a baron or a governor's estate. Once it occupied that reserved space, I thought the expansion was over, but it still continued to grow taller and taller until it was like a skyscraper that towered over the other tall buildings in the area. By my estimate, it was about 100 meters tall and probably had about 30 floors. Wow, but it can't be larger than Castle Albert, can it? The plot of land that my palace occupied was definitely smaller than Castle Albert, but it was so much taller. And thanks to being taller, it gave the impression that it was the bigger of the two. It looked more imposing too. Moreover, my palace had white, shiny outer walls, ornate designs here and there, and just prettier exterior. That being said, it should be mentioned that Castle Albert was built more for defense than anything else, so it wasn't really fair to compare the two like that. The royal castle on the other hand, better not even think about it. Amazing as always, Luke Sama. Your magnificent castle's comparable even to the royal palace, Milia? And after I tried so hard not to imagine it. Can you add a vast courtyard to the surroundings? And then maybe enclose it all within some ramparts. I don't know what it looks like inside your castle, but as it stands, it's a little vulnerable. But that'll also make it harder for me to convince myself into thinking the castle's just alright. After turning down Celon's suggestion, we decided to check the palace's interior. The entrance was spacious enough that it could probably hold a small gathering. A large part of the first floor didn't have a ceiling, thus forming an atrium with the second floor. 2 staircases that were symmetrical to one another connected the 2 floors. It looks like this building's got an elevator too. An elevator? What's that? I've never of that either. Oh, you two haven't used an elevator? Of course, there weren't any elevators anywhere else in this world, but here in the village, our hotels, office buildings, and hospital all had elevators. In hindsight, considering the height of this palace, an elevator was pretty much necessary. On the side of the elevator door was a panel with 2 buttons, one for up and one for down. The fact that there was a down button here in the first floor made it seem like there was at least one underground level. For now though, I pressed the up button. Who opened the door? Did it open by itself? Is this some kind of magic tool? To use an elevator, you first press either the up or down button there, depending on where you're going. Then, when the door opens, you get inside this room and press a button again, this time specifying what floor you want to go to. After a moment, the doors will close and the elevator will take you there. I explained so to the Milia and Celon. When I checked the set of buttons, I saw that it was for the basement floor up to the 30th floor. Yeah, it'll take some time just to check each floor. After looking around the inside of the palace, I was now more generally familiar with its layout. Each room in the lower floors were a bit small, suggesting to me that it could be a place to stay for the officials and the guards working within the palace. The middle floor seemed a lot like an office building's interior, so I assumed it was office space for civil service employees and the like at Novel bin at. The higher floors had many spacious rooms. Some seemed to be used for holding assemblies or perhaps as a lord's audience room. Further up were floors that were also for residential use, only the rooms here were so much bigger. There were also spaces here that had kitchens, probably implying that they were to be turned into restaurants that would make the daily life of the lord and their top-ranking officials even more enjoyable. But for the very top floor, it was a single, luxurious suite. This suite was comparable to even my previous residence, which was a large house. It goes without saying that the interior design and the furnishings themselves were utterly superb. The suite also had a terrace that protruded out as though it was suspended in the air. And in there were a pool and an open-air bath. As amazing as those were though, what overwhelmed us more was the view from there. Amazing? You can see the whole village from here? What a wonderful view. At present, this palace was the tallest building in the entire village, so an unobstructed view of the whole village was more than possible. When I looked down though, I noticed the villagers who were dumbfounded while they looked up to this skyscraper that appeared all of a sudden. I guess this is where we're going to stay starting today? Yup, of course. Where else would we? This was a residence fit for a king. Yet, I was but a mere village chief. The king won't get mad at us for this, will he? TL note, more of a disclaimer, but in the ROS, left and right symbols were used for the up and down button. I have no idea why. The royal palace was in the midst of an unprecedented chaos. The cause was none other than the statement that Marquis Albert declared before the royal messenger, a declaration of war against the royal family. This has caused the royal palace to be divided in half. One faction was of the opinion that opposing Marquis Albert, who has now become the most powerful in the kingdom, was unwise. They were instead advocating to calmly negotiate with the Marquis. The other faction, however, found the Marquis' demeanor to be outrageous and absolutely unforgivable. They were advocating for an immediate military response. Some of them were even proposing to make an alliance with all the other forces in the country in order to take down House Albert. With the two factions opposing one another over and over again, the situation within the palace became tenser than usual. But then, something happened that changed it all over again. The royal court nobles who were at the forefront of advocating for military action were attacked and killed one after another. Who was behind it remained unknown, but it was commonly assumed that it was Marquis Albert. And even though this faction of royal court nobles advocated for war, in the end, they were nobles who have lived a safe and comfortable life. Now that their own lives were in danger, they were frightened. There was another major reason for them to give up on their pursuit of eliminating Marquis Albert. The two dukes Duke Kyan and Duke de Lister did not accept the royal palace's request for cooperation against Marquis Albert. Without their help, the path to defeating the newly strengthened superpower has closed. As such, the discussion within the palace has gradually shifted to how can we meet Marquis Albert's demands while still maintaining the current power structure? After repeated deliberations by the primary court nobles, they eventually reached a certain conclusion. Your Majesty, it pains me to admit, but Lord Albert has now greatly exceeded our forces. For that reason, it'll be extremely hard for us to turn down his demands, and we may very well be forced to comply. However, what he desires is the kingdom's throne. It should go without saying that without any relation to the long-standing royal family that has guarded it for generations, the Marquis cannot assume the throne. The Chancellor said so in a grave tone of voice. On the other hand, King Darius III only quietly listened as he sat on the throne at Novel bin Adat. The king was young and specially in contrast to the obscenely fat kings of the past also slender. Instead, it was the court nobles in the audience room who had bulging stomachs, a sign of the kingdom's descent into corruption, if there ever was one. As such, we have a proposal. At that moment, the Chancellor's line of sight shifted toward the young girl by King Darius III's side. This girl who had received a rite of blessing just a few years ago as the kingdom's first princess. Even within the magnificent royal palace, her beauty still shone radiantly. So much so that there was endless number of marriage proposals that she receives from both within and outside the kingdom. For that and many other reasons, she was King Darius III's beloved daughter. Upon guessing what the Chancellor was about to say, her body immediately but subtly stiffened. Our proposal is to have Princess Darania succeed the throne and have her welcome Lord Albert as her prince consort. That way, not only do we comply with Lord Albert's demands, we also ensure that your royal bloodline continues to the next generation. What should I do? After hearing his supposed vassals, King Darius III retreated to a private chamber and racked his brain. My girl, she's still so young. If that Marquis Albert becomes her prince consort, he'll essentially take control of the palace and the country. And then, given how much of a warmonger he is, he'll surely set his eyes on another country. Blood will flow more than they ever had if we allow him. But what can I do about it? Nothing, absolutely nothing. He was a king only in name. All manner of governance has been taken over by the court nobles, and he was not allowed to intervene in any way. The exchange earlier where the court nobles asked the king for his final judgment on the matter was nothing more than an act. Even if he rejected the proposal, the nobles would not back down. After all, these nobles had the power not only to dethrone the king but also to appoint a new one. As for how a king could have so little power, it was the fault of the previous kings themselves. More specifically, it was the fault of foolish and abusive kings who sat on the throne for years while their kingdom suffered. After seeing such a thing repeat over and over again, the court nobles amended the laws and gave themselves the power to change the ruler. However, that increase to the court nobles' power eventually gave birth to the current corruption plaguing their kingdom. Moreover, even if a capable leader like King Darius III appears, the current system made it hard for such people to properly govern the country. Your Majesty, a report. While racking his head like that, a certain report was brought to the king. It's from an agent of ours who succeeded in infiltrating the Albert territory. Upon hearing that, hope suddenly returned to the king. Darania, the fate of this kingdom rests on your hands. I hope you can someday forgive me for being such a powerless king. Father, worry not. I promise you will succeed at Novel bin Adat. Despite knowing that this could possibly be her last time to see her father, Darania steeled herself and spoke confidently. As a princess, she had worn only luxurious and beautiful clothes her whole life, but right now, she was dressed with the shabby clothes that a traveler might wear. Shabby as clothes might be though, it couldn't hide her unmatched beauty. The secret journey she was about to go on was unsurprisingly too dangerous for a young, beautiful girl to go alone. If she ends up being captured by bandits and the like, who knows what ill fate awaited her. On the other hand, it was impossible to provide her a large group of guards. In the end, they settled on entrusting her to a single guard. Marisha, I beg of you, please take care of Darania. I vow to do my utmost, Your Majesty. Not only did she possess strength enough that she was made a member of the royal guards, even though she was a woman, she also had a good background as well as great loyalty toward the royal family. These qualities made her the ideal companion for the princess. Your Highness, to hide our real identities, I suggest we pose as sisters. However, since I can pass only as the older sister, I'm afraid I will have to talk to you casually. Apologies in advance. I understand, Marishanissima. Just to doubly sure, I also propose that we use aliases. If I may, I'll be referring to you as Ria from now on. Very well. Then, I shall refer to you as Rinnissima from now on. Alright, let's be off, Ria. Yes, Rinnissima. Like that, Princess Darania stealthily left the palace. Despite struggling, the princess uttered not a single word of complaint as they traveled northeast. What lied northeast of the royal palace was the Albert territory. We'll finally enter the Albert territory tomorrow, won't we, Rinnissima? The princess had known beforehand that they were traveling into essentially enemy territory and thus prepared herself. Yet, understandably, she was unable to hide her nervousness. After all, if ever Lord Albert knew of their presence, their mission, and the king's plan would come to nothing. There's no need to be afraid, Ria. Lord Albert himself is in the former Schneger territory right now, and his attention is completely set on the royal palace. We're not exactly under his nose, but it should still be hard for him to notice us. Why, you're right, but even so, can the Hope Father spoke really be here? I don't know the details myself, so all I can do is believe right now. Either way, we should know for sure once we reach the city called Reason. And so, they continued traveling. Once they entered the Albert territory, they continued going north. Before long. So, that's the city of Reason. What impressive walls? Why yes. And it's not even their capital. That's the Albert territory for you, I suppose. When the two entered the city, they were even more surprised. What a fantastic city. I heard this was an old city though? The buildings and the roads in the city looked as though they were built just recently. Furthermore, not a piece of trash could be found anywhere. If you take a walk around most cities, even in the royal capital, you're bound to see trash and animal waste somewhere along the way. At times, human waste as well. The people in the streets are clean too. Too clean, even. Indeed, judging by the clothes they're wearing, they seem to be just ordinary citizens, but are they really? Moreover, the city was abuzz with activity. For some reason though, vagrants, which were a common sight in the royal capital, were nowhere to be seen. What's going on in this city? If Lord Albert managed to build a city like this, can it be that he's actually a great lord? I've heard countless tales about his warmongering, but I don't believe I've ever heard of a tale saying that he's skilled at territory administration. Bewildered like that, the two proceeded to their destination. What awaited the two there was, oh, so that's Luke Sama's new home. It's so tall and amazing. It suits our chief, doesn't it? Wow. Papa, I want to see what it's like up there. Looks like we can from the viewing deck at the top. The villagers were surprised by the sudden appearance of such a tall building. However, it only took them a moment to realize what happened and say, oh, must be the chief again. The villagers were in a commotion not out of fear, but rather out of wanting to get a look inside. Given that, I decided to customize a part of the top floors into a viewing platform that was open to the general public. Of course, I also added an elevator that was exclusively for that. If I remember right, the tallest tower in the royal palace is about 50 meters tall, isn't it? Yup. Once the king sees this, he's definitely going to get angry. Fortunately, the king would never come to our village just to visit, but he could still hear about us. I fear it might escalate into him attacking us at Novel bin at. You need not worry at all, Luke Sama. Though they might be called the royal family, they can't easily make a move against any place within the Albert territory. I guess I should worry more about angering my father then. Perhaps, but he should be busy taking over other territories right now, right? According to the rumors, my father has finally started to make a move against other domains. At the rate things were going, the entire country could soon be involved in all-out war. However, the Albert forces should have expanded to the point where they're larger than all the other territories' forces combined. I've heard lords with mid-size armies are already surrendering one after the other. If this goes on, I think it's likely that the royal family will also surrender without even giving a fight. That analysis was given by Celius Gunn. If what he said happens, my father would soon be ruler of the entire country. Given my father's power, he could very well be able to unite this war-torn country. However, the problem was that he wasn't going to stop at just that. Either way, he'd be busy for a while. I just hope that means he won't shift his attention toward this wasteland. My father still seemed to be unaware of this village, so it was probably safe to assume that Raoul kept to our agreement. Nevertheless, rumors about the village continued to spread, and it was only a matter of time before my father hears about us. While we were talking like that, Saturn contacted me via telepathy. Luke Sama, the North's governor, has arrived in the village. Wait, you mean Mitchell-san himself? Not a messenger or something? Yes, the governor himself. I wonder what could he be here for? Mitchell-san was the one to replace Dan-san as the North's governor. Understandably, he was quite the busy person, which made this visit all the more mysterious. I had also attached to him a double of mine, yet I didn't receive any message from it. At any rate, I instructed Saturn to guide Mitchell-san to a place where I could meet with him. Good to see you again, Luke-sama. I see that in the short while that I haven't been here, you've built another unbelievable thing. Yeah. I tried to build a palace, but what I got what this skyscraper. Haha, you're the same as ever. Mitchell-san said so and laughed in a dry manner. By his side were two people. They had a hood on, so I couldn't get a good look at their faces, but based on their physiques, they seemed to be women. They didn't give off the feeling that they were Mitchell-san's guards though. Anyway, what can I do for you today? I'd like to introduce you to someone, Luke-sama. Introduce someone? At that moment, one of the women lowered her hood. She was so beautiful. It was almost like she came right out of a painting. In spite of the normal-looking traveling clothes she was wearing, I could tell at a glance that she was a woman of noble birth. But why would a woman like her come to our village? Are you Luke Albert-sama, the one who built this village? I've heard many tales about you beforehand, but I didn't imagine you're this young. May I ask who you are? I hope you can forgive the late introduction. I am Darania, King Dario's III's eldest daughter. The royal family really got mad and sent someone? Going back in time a little. We've been expecting you. No, I'm not the person you're looking for. I'm here just to guide you to that person. Pardon, but I'm going to have to ask you to follow me to another location. Princess Darania and her guard Marisa had arrived at the place they were told to go. There, the person waiting for them guided them somewhere else. More specifically, that person guided them to the governor's castle. This is the governor's castle, isn't it? I see, this is where the spy. Please head this way. As you might imagine, having you enter from the main entrance draws too much attention. Despite their suspicions, the two entered through the rear entrance. Eventually, they arrived at a drawing room. Hello there. Thank you for traveling all this way, Your Highness. The man waiting in that room stood up and bowed. I am Mitchell, the North's governor. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. The governor? Not expecting the person before them at all, the two immediately put their guard up. What? Why is an Albert governor here? No, it can't be. Has our plan been leaked to the enemy? A governor ruled over towns and cities as the reigning lord's representative. It was only prudent for the two to be wary of a person who likely had Lord Albert's favor. I get it now. It's only reasonable to be taken aback, I suppose, but there's no need to worry. I am genuinely your ally, Your Highness. I am from the outskirts of the Albert territory, true enough, but more than that, I am part of Your Highness Mother's noble house. It is by orders of His Majesty the King more than a decade ago that I infiltrated my way through the ranks of House Albert. Between you and me though, I didn't imagine I'd ever become a governor. My mother's? When Princess Darania relaxed a little, the governor began telling her stories about her mother's birthplace. His stay there was mostly only during his youth, but his fond recounting could convince just about everyone that he did in fact lived in the area. I have been there a few times, so I understand what you're saying. It truly is a beautiful and wonderful place. Thank you for believing me. You're quite perceptive, Your Highness. Though you are His Majesty's daughter, so I suppose that's only to be expected at Novel bin Adat. In an ideal world, King Dario's III could have accomplished much as king. Just the fact that he recognized early on that Lord Albert would soon become a threat and sent a spy to infiltrate should say a lot about the king's competence. It should be said though that, in order to avoid anything unexpected, I'm not the only one deployed by the king. But of course, I have no clue of the others' identities or locations. How smart of father. And then, while keeping her eagerness in check, Darania nervously asked a question. So, about the thing that'll overturn this dire situation. There's a city this big in this kind of place. Surprising, isn't it? More surprising is that just about a year ago, this place was nothing but a wasteland. Just a year ago, along with Mitchell, the two traveled to the north of Reason. What awaited the princess in the vast wasteland there was a great city not at all inferior to the royal capital. And the person who made all of these possible, is in conflict with Lord Albert? He's not exactly in conflict with Lord Albert, but he has been exiled by Lord Albert after his rite of blessing. Then, what a fool Lord Albert must be. That might indeed be the greatest mistake of Lord Albert's life, but in all fairness to him, no one but a god could have foreseen this. Towering over the other buildings in the center of the city was a large structure that was more than 100 meters tall. Apparently, that's the village chief's current residence. The village chief's residence, you see, but it exceeds what you would expect of a royal palace of any country. With a face that said he's gone and built another ridiculous thing in the short time I didn't see him, Mitchell declared something to the two women. I fully believe Luke Albert-sama is the key toward turning things around and even winning against Lord Albert. I hope you can forgive the late introduction. I am Darania, King Dario's III's eldest daughter. Someone from the royal family? I am Luke Albert, the chief of this village. I did worry that they would send someone to protest why I built a palace grander than even the royal palace, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon at Novel bin Adat. Nevertheless, I'm terribly surprised. I've never seen such a tall castle before. I knew it. She might not be direct about it, but she's definitely angry. The interior is beautiful and very intricate as well. Building something like this would be hard for the royal family, especially with how things are right now. I deeply apologize. What are you apologizing for? I scrambled to apologize, but she just looked confused. Can it be that she's not angry? Well, aren't you angry at me for building a palace like this? I'm not. If anything, I'm impressed. Oh, I see. Thank goodness. But then, if she's not here to rebuke me, why did she come all this way? There's quite a distance between the village and the royal capital, so she can't be here without a specific reason, right? And now that I think about it, my father's in the midst of overthrowing the royal family. So, visiting me, the son of her enemy, makes a lot less sense. Well, Mitchell Sands with her, so I guess she knows that I'm not attached to House Albert anymore. Wait, why is an Albert governor with the princess anyway? Luke Sama, I have a favor to ask. A favor? I had a bad feeling about it. So much so that I wanted to turn around and exit the room. And then, the princess said something unbelievable to me. I'd like to ask for your help in defeating Lord Albert? How did this happen? I forgot to speak formally and shouted so. Wait. Are you not aware that I'm also an Albert? I am aware, but I'm also aware that you've been exiled after your blessing ceremony and that you're in conflict with Lord Albert. We were not in good terms, sure, but we were not at odds either. Probably. Everyone in the royal palace, save for a small number of people, is already leaning toward surrendering to Lord Albert. At this rate, he would soon rule over the entire country. With a serious look on her face, the princess explained so. When asked for details, she said that the current plan was for her to be the new ruler and then welcome my father into the royal palace as her husband. However, more likely than not, my father would actually be the one in power and she would be a figurehead whose only real duty was to ensure that her royal bloodline would continue. Of course, if Lord Albert were someone who could lead this kingdom toward prosperity, I could somehow tolerate such a fate. However, what likely awaits us all is an age of tyranny through fear and power. Moreover, based on his actions thus far, it's easy to predict that he will soon invade other kingdoms to further expand his domain. Yeah, I won't argue with that, but why ask me? According to what I heard, you easily defeated Albert forces led by your younger brother. Given that, you should stand a chance against Lord Albert as well. Mitchell, who is over there, thinks so at least. Before we noticed it, Mitchell-san was standing behind the princess as though he was hiding. I for one stared at him with distrustful eyes. I think you're asking a bit too much of me, but in the first place, what's your role in all this, Mitchell-san? Haha, you see, I'm actually a spy sent by the king himself to infiltrate the Albert territory. Oh, and it really doesn't matter if you turn us down. Right about now, His Majesty should be telling Lord Albert about this village. You've gotta be joking. So that's Lord Albert, huh? What an intimidating presence. I'm so glad we decided not to go to war against that guy. Marquis Albert and his soldiers imposingly marched into the audience chamber. By that act alone, the court noble waiting in there were easily overwhelmed. The Marquis proceeded to walk until he was at the foot of the throne where King Darius XIII was sitting. However, instead of kneeling down, he remained standing and said something utterly disrespectful. Your daughter's to be queen and I to be her prince consort, is that right? I don't mind that deal. I have no interest in the throne itself. As long as this kingdom moves according to my will, I don't see any problem. In order to deal with Marquis Albert, who was about to take the throne by force, the court nobles suggested this compromise. Fortunately for them, the Marquis thought it was beneficial for him as well. If the Marquis went ahead and usurped the throne, he would have had to deal with the resulting uprisings all over the country. Of course, as a warmonger, it would be easy for him to suppress the public with force, but in consideration of his future endeavors, he concluded that internal affairs should be dealt with as soon as possible. So, where is the princess? She is not here. Fetch her quickly then. If she's to become my wife, I ought to have a good look at her face. You misunderstand. She's not here in the royal castle. In fact, she's not even in the royal capital. What are you getting at? Marquis Albert frowned at what the king just said. Sharing that sentiment, the court nobles began to make noise at Novel bin at. And then, the king stood with force from the throne and uncaringly laughed, all while looking down at the Marquis. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that you, of all people, were not aware of the growing threat within your own lands. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Luke Albert, your very own son. Luke? That incompetent brat? Ha ha ha. If he truly is as incompetent as you say he is, then how is it that he was able to build a grand city that is grander than even the royal capital in less than 2 years? Everyone in the audience chamber who heard the wildly incomprehensible words of the king were left wondering if he has perhaps gone mad. And yet, his eyes were still full of reason and sanity. If you don't believe me, then go send your subordinates to investigate. And like I told you, you won't find my daughter here. I don't want her marrying a man like you, so I've sent her to escape to the city in the wasteland that your son has built. You. At the king's troublesome action as well as his gloating, Marquis Albert bit his lip. He could kill the king there and then, but that would result in the uprisings he was hoping to avoid. It could be that the king was simply bluffing, so there was no need to rush things. Fortunately, the wasteland in question was within Marquis Albert's original territory, so retrieving the princess should not pose any difficulties. As long as he had the princess, the rest would be fine. Go check that wasteland at once. Yes, sir. No, before you go, check every corner of the palace first in case the princess is just hiding somewhere. It doesn't matter whether they're royalty or a noble, if they get in the way, cut them down. This place is ours now. You understood, sir? Like that, the Albert forces has captured the royal palace. Back at the capital of the Albert territory. A city in that wasteland? Who told you this nonsense? It's the Marquis apparently. Your older brother built that large city in the wasteland. Ha, it's nonsense, I tell you. In the first place, his gift was village building. What's that got to do with a large city, huh? Why, you're certainly right, but if you want to look, go look yourselves. I don't know anything about it. You understood. Raoul just refused to help the investigation team sent by Lord Albert. A little while after they left, he muttered something. You're about to be found out by father. Brother, what do you plan to do now? A report from those sent to investigate the wasteland in the northern Albert territory. About a week after the Albert forces had occupied the royal palace, an unbelievable report was brought to Marquis Albert. It has been confirmed that a city within that wasteland do exist. It has many tall buildings, and is surrounded by 2 layers of imposing walls. Its population has already reached the tens of thousands, with immigrants still continuing to arrive. The report not only confirmed what the king said to be true, but it also told other surprising, almost impossible things. That's absurd. There should be nothing in there at all. A city of that many people was built just 2 years ago? What kind of trick did Luke Sama use to achieve that? I had no idea he was that talented. Marquis Albert listened to that with a sour look on his face. After all, he failed not only to recognize his son's true talents but also exiled him. However, the one to let things become this way was his other son, the one left in charge of the Albert territory. That Raoul. Why didn't he report this sooner? He likely had no idea of its existence as well. As to be expected, even Raoul Sama couldn't have predicted that there would be a city like that in the wasteland. A retainer hurriedly followed up with that. However, the truth of the matter was that Raoul knew of its existence long ago and only chose to remain silent. And, have you found the princess in that city? Why yes, sir. Then bring her to me right away. About that, the princess has refused our requests to come back. Moreover, she is also being protected by that city, making it difficult to bring her back by force. Then send a message to Luke. Tell him that if he doesn't hand over the princess right away, I will personally lead an army to crush that precious little city of his. Marquis Albert shouted such a command to his subordinate. However, the reply he received days later only made him angrier. We're going back to the Albert territory? I'll show that brat what happens to anyone that defies me. Leaving affairs in the royal palace to a retainer, Marquis Albert began his way back to his own home territory. The princess is now part of this city. If you wish to bring her back, then do your worst. That is what's written on the letter I sent, give or take. Their armies should be here before long. What? Mitchell-san turned out to be a spy sent by His Majesty to the Albert territory. And, as a desperate move to prevent the kingdom from being stolen by my father, he has seemingly made it so that this village and the Albert forces would clash. Honestly, I found it truly troublesome. Wait a moment? Did you do this without approval from Luke Sama? Of course, I did, Your Highness. After all, had he refused, it would be all over for us. Hence, the need for me to put him in a position where he couldn't refuse. Wah. Apparently, the princess did not know the details of Mitchell-san's plans. Ha, ha ha. Please, your eyes wound me. It wasn't like I enjoyed doing it. I was reluctant up to the last moment. Besides, given Marquis Albert and Luke Sama's contrasting ideologies, they're bound to clash with one another sooner or later. It's impossible to keep the existence of this village a secret from the Marquis forever. After all, Luke Sama, I humbly apologize. However, it is true that you are the only one we can rely on. Please find it in your heart to lend us help. At that, I sighed deeply. I'm not enthusiastic about it, but I've got no choice now either way. Besides, it's not like I'm incapable of imagining what will happen to this kingdom once my father has taken over it. Then, well, my fate might be sealed, but the village's isn't yet. For a formal decision, I'd have to discuss it with the everyone first at novel bin at. Haha, I'm sure if you say you want to do it, the others will follow suit right away. That aside, what do you think is our chance of success? Mitchell-san asked so in such a carefree manner. I think I should hit him in the head at least once. I guess it all depends on the strategies we end up using. I just wanted to spend my life living peacefully in this small village. How did things turn up like this? You just want to live peacefully? With that crazy gift and all the absurd things you've done with it, that must be some kind of joke, right? It's been a while, father. HMP, I'm surprised you came. Whether you came because you were frightened of the consequence or not, what matters to me is that you're still doing what I tell you to do. We were in the castle of the Albert territory's capital city. In other words, we were in what I used to call home. As for why I traveled to this place that I thought I would never return to, it was because my father sent a message telling me to meet with him after he has arrived from the royal capital. In addition, the messenger also told me in a very condescending manner, I should add, that they had an army ready to attack the village at a moment's notice, but they were willing to stay their hand depending on the answers I would give in the meeting. According to what I heard, your gift apparently allows you to easily build buildings. Thanks to that, you managed to build a city in a wasteland like that in such a short time. Aside from its uselessness in combat, it seems I underestimated your gift. If you hand over the princess, I have no qualms in you continuing to use your gift, even if it's to build yourself a good fortress. So, how about it? I was asked what I thought on the offer, but the way I was asked made it clear I couldn't refuse. That made my body tense up, but I steeled myself and spoke. Before I give an answer, I'd like to ask something first. What is it? Father, once you've gained control of the entire kingdom, what do you plan to do? My father displeased as though he wanted to ask why he even had to talk about such a thing. Despite that, he still chose to answer. Firstly, I'll strengthen this country. To that end, I'll take away the armies of every lord and incorporate them into mine. Once it moves precisely according to my commands, it'll become the strongest kingdom army there is. And what do you plan to do with this kingdom army? What else is there to do? Attack another nation, of course. Before long, all the neighboring nations would become mine, and I would hold the legacy of an unrivaled domain. Yeah, his reply's pretty much what I expected. It was inevitable that my father's way approaching things was quite different from me who has lived a previous and totally different life, but even in terms of this world's standards, my father would be considered an extremely militaristic and hegemonistic man. I fail to see what meaning such a path can have. What? Governing the territory to be better than what it currently is and making the people's lives be richer and fuller, that is what I believe a lord's most important duties are. So, why someone would sacrifice the lives of their people simply for the sake of territory expansion is beyond me at novel bin at. Don't be a fool. Territory expansion is the most important goal a lord should strive for. To stand still is to stagnate. One should always aim to expand. It seemed clear that no matter how much we talk about it, we would never see eye to eye. But then again, if it was so easy to change my father's mind, this much of an expansion during a single lifetime could never have happened. I expected this to be the case, but it really seems I can't offer you any assistance. Offer assistance? You seem to have the wrong idea here. I'm not asking you to do something, I'm telling you. You have no choice in this whatsoever. No, I do have a choice. I am my own person, and I'll do whatever I decide to do. Not what you want me to. It seems I've failed at educating you. GH. With immense intent to kill, my father drew out the sword hanging from his waist. There is a limit to how stupid you can be. The moment you nonchalantly stepped in here, the only choice left to you is to do what I tell you. Yet, even I'm not stupid enough to walk here myself. What are you saying? Well then, if you're going to attack me, go ahead and do it. I'll be waiting in the wasteland. My father had a questioning look on his face when I made my consciousness return to my real body. Yes, the one to attend this discussion with my father was a body double. By the way, whenever a double receives a certain amount of damage, it would simply vanish. When Marquis Albert slashed Luke's chest with his sword, the latter mysteriously turned into sand that then fell to the floor. It's not his real body? Still, for him to declare war on father. This person breathed out a sigh of relief after stealthily watching the exchange before the Marquis and Luke. For some reason, the words Luke spoke of earlier crossed his mind again and again. I am my own person, and I'll do whatever I decide to do. I've just talked with my father. Don't worry though, unlike with Raoul, I used a body double this time. There's nothing you can't do anymore, is there? You're amazing as always, Luke-sama. After my consciousness returned to my real body, I told Selin and Milia about my meeting with father. So, there's no doubt about it now, an attack's coming. This is just an estimate, but I'd say it's more than likely that they'll have a force of over 20,000 troops at Novel bin at. Wasn't Raoul's force composed of 5,000? Moreover, not only were there more veteran soldiers this time, this army would be led by none other than father. Meanwhile, we only had a force of about 10,000, and most of them were civilians. The village might technically have a count of over 100,000, but that number included the population of the north, the Franco territory, and the Daltz territory. But then again, a lot of villagers have been training themselves lately, so they might be comparable to regular soldiers now. Will Viscount Daltz and Viscount Franco be lending us aid? I guess I can also request help from my father. Was Selin going to say threaten just now? Well, if possible, I'd like the village to handle it ourselves. Then how about making another labyrinth of walls? We'd be able to shave off a lot of their forces if we do that. Actually, I think I have a better idea this time. From the attacker's point of view, it might seem downright unfair. Phew. I don't know what it is, but I get the feeling it's something really crazy again. A week after Luke's body double has met with Marquis Albert, the Albert forces led by the Marquis himself has departed from the territory's capital. Ho, 20,000 troops for a single city? Plus bringing 3 of the 4 generals along? Edel-sama is being really cautious this time, isn't he? Goes to show how much of a threat he thinks the enemy is. Rumor has it that Raoul summoned 5,000 soldiers and lost. Ho, is that why he didn't report anything about the city? Raoul-sama is still but a child. They might share the same gift, but as to be expected, he's not on the same level as Edel-sama. Not yet, at least. Later on depending on his growth. That exchange was by the Marquis' closest aides, the so-called 4 generals. They who have sworn loyalty to the Marquis were deeply trusted and were even authorized to move armies based on their discretion. Moreover, each one was a mighty fighter. Each time they descend upon the battlefield, the enemy forces just get trampled. They were a significant factor in why the Albert territory has expanded so much so quickly. Among the 20,000 troops was Raoul. However, the unit he was leading was much smaller than the one he led in his first campaign. Moreover, he was placed in the rear end of the whole army. This was because he had told the Marquis everything when the latter interrogated him. What angered the Marquis was not the fact that Raoul didn't report anything or leading an army without permission. No, what angered the Marquis was the fact that Raoul lost. For the Marquis who had won each of his battles, losing was the most unforgivable thing. The Marquis would cast aside anyone weak, even his own son, even a son that had the sword master techniques gift. But the fact is that father increased the number of soldiers to 20,000 after hearing my story. Even he is on guard. But then again, my story is full of ridiculous things, like a labyrinth of moving walls and a gigantic tree dragon. Who knows how much of that he believes? At that moment, the ones in the vanguard began making a commotion. Yeah, as expected. Raoul expected such a commotion would arise once the soldiers see the labyrinth of walls. He couldn't deny that he was looking forward a little bit to how the Marquis would overcome such a challenge. Because of his placement in the army though, Raoul arrived in the wasteland later than most soldiers. What he saw was nothing. The city's gone? They should have arrived in the wasteland right about now, I think. They're probably quite surprised. After all, the city that should have been there is nowhere to be seen. Zugagagagagago. Luxamami eyes aren't fooling me, are they? I think I'm seeing the city move? Yup, it's moving. Or I guess I should say that I'm moving it. Wait, what? Cities don't usually move, you know? Why are talking like it's the most natural thing in the world? Yes, at the moment, I was moving the entire village through the reposition village skill. Just what you'd expect from Luke-sama. I don't think this is to be expected of anyone, even Luke-sama. You always so easily exceed my expectations. Shouldn't you be a bit more surprised than that? The princess was panicking like that, but everyone else was rather calm. After all, me moving buildings around has become a common occurrence in the village. Even moving the entire village has happened once before. But this is the first time I've moved the village this far. So, does that mean we can escape without fighting? Maybe, but that's not why I'm doing this, Your Highness. I'm moving the village so that we can win with as little damage as possible. We could probably run until my father gives up, but I felt bad for his soldiers who were just following his orders. A moving destination advancing enemy soldiers sure have it rough. I don't even want to think about it, dear sister. See, certainly, if we do it like this, the enemy soldiers would lose a lot of morale and stamina. Where do we stop though? The plan was for us to move west of the wasteland first, and then after it was certain that we would not bump into the enemy army who was headed north, we would head south. Most of the places we would be passing through weren't part of what my gift considered as my village, and I would have to use the territory takeover village skill to make it so. In fact, considering our destination, I might end up incorporating places all the way to the southern tip of the kingdom. And then, after a few days of moving southward, is that really the royal capital? Off in the distance, I could see walls that were comparable to the ones in the Albert territory's capital, though not to our village's walls at Novel bin Adat. Yup, it is, Your Highness. I didn't think I'd be back here so soon, but wouldn't it be occupied by the Albert army right now? And that's why we have to take it back first. Come again? My name is Neon. I am one of the 4 generals who support Edel Albert-sama. As a strategist, I had guided our side to victory in many battlefields. In consideration of my talents, I have been assigned another important task, to command the Albert army occupying the royal capital in the absence of Edel-sama. Many parties naturally weren't fond of us, but even so, I must maintain the current state of things using the limited number of troops I had. Keeping track of every move of the royal family and the court nobles was no easy task, but thankfully, nothing major has happened thus far. There have been small attempts to oust us, but we had immediately quelled such attempts. We even managed to arrest some nobles before they had set their attempts into motion. In order to live up to Edel-sama's expectations of me, I plan to keep the royal capital under control no matter what. And Neon-sama? What is it? Another rebellion? A flustered soldier rushed in, but in contrast, I was perfectly calm. As a commander, no matter how dire the situation might be, always looking calm was required. See city? In the city? Then, dispatch. No, an unknown city is moving toward the royal capital? This was probably the most surprised I have been in my entire life. When I looked from the tallest tower in the royal palace, there it really was. A city with walls more impressive than the royal capital, truly approaching at great speeds. That city also matches the city that Edel-sama was headed to. You mean to tell me that city moved all the way from the wasteland in the north of the Albert territory? How in the world? It has stopped somewhere near the royal capital, but the soldiers from that city has begun getting over the walls and into the royal capital. Their numbers there reported to have over 10,000 troops. There's too many of them. The soldiers we've deployed can't handle them. Our soldiers need immediate reinforcements. The enemies have made it to the palace. We have a few soldiers within the palace, but we have no choice but to close the gates and prepare for a siege. It was one horrible report after the other. Try as I might, I couldn't think of a way to deal with all of these developments. Neon-sama? What should we do? Please give us your instructions. Neon-sama? My subordinates please sounded so far away. I mustn't let them take the royal palace. I dread to imagine how angry Edel-sama would be should I let that happen. Oh, failure is not an option at all cost. I must defend it. Me pride as one of the 4 generals is on the line, but how do I hold it? 2 can't think of anything gets over it's all over. And Neon-sama? Ababababababababa. Neon-sama has lost it. And stop. Right before we hit the royal capital's walls, I made the village stop. Alright, are you guys ready? Yes? When I shouted so, the armed villagers enthusiastically replied. Each of them armed, they climbed on top of the village's walls through specially prepared staircases and then jumped over the royal capital's walls. Well, since the royal capital's walls were lower than the village's, it might be better to say that the villagers jumped down. At any rate, that was how we managed to enter the royal capital. We pushed back the Albert forces who were surprised by our attack and made our way to the royal palace at Novel bin Adat. We expected it, but the palace's gates were closed shut when we arrived. However, through the underground tunnel I built, Salon's main troops burrowed under and entered the palace. Why are they coming from deeper inside? When did they? After Salon's troops appeared from behind the Albert soldiers and took care of the latter, they opened the gates from within. Like that, we took back the palace in no time at all. Father? Darania? We managed to rescue the king from his house arrest and bring about an emotional reunion with the princess. But I didn't think you'd come back so quickly. Neither did I, Father, and it's all thanks to Luke-sama over there. Oh, I'm Luke Albert, Your Majesty. Considering the state of the kingdom, I had thought the king would look like the typical corrupt, lecherous, incompetent, and fat ruler. However, upon looking at him, I saw that he had rather normal physique, rather simple clothes, and a rather earnest and wise look about him. I deeply apologize for our actions. We had dragged you in this ordeal without your consent. The king suddenly bowed his head and apologized. That shocked me quite a bit. It's all right, I'm an Albert, after all. I'm partly responsible for my father's violent actions. But I've heard that you've parted ways with Lord Albert some time ago. That's right, I was exiled right after my rite of blessing. Do you hate your father for that? I don't hate him. But our values do differ vastly. Unlike him, I have no interest at all in power or war. A peaceful and quiet life is more than enough for me. Ha ha ha, I understand now. You and I are quite alike, it seems. Truth be told, there have been many times in my life where I considered stepping down as king and living that kind of life. Alas, being born as royalty comes with duties I must prioritize. Just like what I heard from the princess and Mitchell-san, the current king seemed like a wonderful person. But how did you outmaneuver Lord Albert? I've heard from your soldiers earlier that you took the opening made by Lord Albert marching to the wasteland and went here instead. Yes. We did it by moving the entire village here. Excuse me? Father, please look over there. Encouraged by the princess, the king looked out of the window. He was so shocked that he fell down. What's the meaning of this? Why is there no city? It was here just yesterday, sir. If that's the case, then why is there nothing here right now? Don't tell me it just vanished overnight? Hi? Lord Albert's shouts reverberated through the wasteland. After arriving in the wasteland, the 20,000 Albert troops saw nothing but the vast wasteland and the nearby monster-infested areas. The rumored city was nowhere to be found. Or have we been following false information from the very start? That can't be the case. Multiple investigators have already confirmed the city's existence, not to mention the many citizens who have entered the city themselves. Maybe everyone only saw an illusion? Ho ho ho, an illusion of that scale is impossible. Then, what other explanation is there? What, did the city move itself elsewhere? While 3 of the 4 generals were perplexed like that, the scouting unit sent to run around the wasteland returned. We've discovered a mysterious road that leads to the center of the wasteland. A road? The Marquis rode on his horse to the said location and found the said road. The road was a beautiful stone pavement that ran straight through the wasteland, almost as though slicing it. By following the road, the Marquis found something. Is that a stone monument? At the place where the road ended was a giant rock. In that rock, some characters were written. The village has temporarily moved to the royal capital. Village Chief Luke. What the hell is this? Is he mocking me? The Marquis did not care for the words written in the monument and instead ordered the scouts to expand their search radius. In the end though, the scouts found nothing else at Novel bin Adat. Because of that, they decided to fall back for the moment to Risen, the largest and closest city in the north. The day after returning from the wasteland, the Marquis received an urgent report from the royal capital. The capital has been invaded by an unknown army and the palace was taken immediately. What? And what of Neon? He probably taken prisoner. Useless fool. But that unknown army, there shouldn't be any army capable of defeating Neon's troops in such a short amount of time. About that, according to the report, the unknown army came from the mysterious city that appeared out of nowhere beside the capital. To the royal capital. We're going to the capital right this moment. It was decided later that the Albert army would head to the royal capital. It was, naturally, to take it back. However, on their way there, they have been ambushed multiple times. They got our supplies again. The soldiers also haven't been able to get a good rest because of the repeated attacks. Enemy soldiers have been appearing out of nowhere in their campsite in the middle of the night. It would seem the enemy's primary goal was to make their supplies and weapons unusable. After denying them of what could be said to be the lifeline of every army, the enemies would disappear as mysteriously as they appeared. No matter how vigilant they become, they still couldn't catch their enemies, much less prevent their attacks. On the other hand, the loud alarm bells going all through the night have prevented the soldiers from getting enough rest and thus sped up their exhaustion. This has caused more and more soldiers to desert. However, since their food supplies had dwindled so much due to the attacks, soldiers leaving strangely worked in favor for the Albert army. A round trip to and from the wasteland has made the soldiers reach peak exhaustion. Our food supply is quite low as well. I think we should rest and stock up here for the meantime. Nonsense. If we take too long, the other nobles' armies will join in the fight as well. That'll make it harder to take back the capital. It doesn't matter how many men desert, we will continue marching. Like that, Marquis Albert dismissed his subordinate's suggestion. If it was made known that the Albert army was struggling at the moment, the nobles who had decided to stand back and watch might instead make their own moves against the Albert army. And so, before that happens, they must recapture the capital as soon as possible. After force marching all the way to the capital, about only half of their soldiers remained. Let's go. Oh, with that command, they climbed up the stairs. The place they were climbing up to was a place with a great many tents and some bonfires burning brightly in the middle of the night. That should be where they're storing their food supply at Novel bin at. Alright, let's burn it. Upon throwing a torch on a certain tent, fire began to engulf it. Enemy attack? Enemy attack? Like that, their raid was finally noticed. However, it was already too late, they have already climbed down the stairs. And once all of them have descended, the stairs itself vanished. Where did they go? This should be where the intruders have gone, but they had vanished into the night, leaving the soldiers dumbfounded and confused. It looks like we've managed to reduce their numbers by a good deal. I nodded while confirming the chaos we dealt to the Albert army. I was able to do this safely and also accurately thanks to me possessing a body double that was in the sight. It seems they still don't suspect that we're hiding underground. We were actually following and matching the Albert army's march, only we were traveling underground. And whenever they would camp for the night, we would begin our raid. Some of the villagers had infiltrated their ranks and posed as soldiers. This allowed us to obtain some information. And apparently, they were having a hard time stopping soldiers from deserting. However, due to the fact that we have been constantly burning their food supply, their commanders didn't seem to mind too much their declining numbers. That being said, Father seemed quite irritated. Our spies reported that they could often hear him shout. Even before our raids, the Albert army has been marching as quickly as they could. They must really be worried that the other lords would get involved with the affairs in the royal capital. In fact, now that there was a chance to defeat the Albert army, the opportunistic court nobles have simultaneously switched sides and were now convincing other lords to do the same. And when the Albert army finally reached the capital, we managed to reduce them to 10,000 troops. I'm glad we reduced them to half of their original size, but I'd like to decrease them some more. Well, are you all ready? At that time, I transferred my consciousness to the double that was at the top of the ramparts surrounding the capital. Yes, we're ready to go anytime. The village's dwarves enthusiastically replied so. Dona, this range has been set, right? It's perfect. The dwarf girl named Dona confidently replied so. Then, fire. Oh, at my signal, the dwarves rushed to the iron objects set beforehand. These objects that they built themselves sent iron projectiles to a given destination. In other words, they were cannons. That's the royal capital? I'm sure the walls didn't look like that when we left. And next to the capital's another city. What the hell's going on here? The Albert soldiers were finally close enough to see the capital. However, upon looking at it, a huge commotion among them occurred. After all, the capital's walls were clearly more imposing than before. What's more, next to the capital was something that shouldn't have been there at all, another city. It would seem that the reports were true. That much is obvious from looking at this. Now that they were here, they had no choice than to believe those ridiculous reports. The city that should have been in the wasteland has somehow relocated itself here. And the walls, did they replace it with something new? It looks like that to you too? For me too. I hope this is just an illusion. The generals, who were fierce and battle-hardened, had no choice but be dumbfounded before the series of things they haven't experienced until this moment. But then, something else happened. From the mysterious objects that were lined up on the walls, smoke as well as thunderous sounds emerged. What is that? Run! Something's flying at us? Boom! Lumps of iron crashed in front of the Albert army's vanguard one after the other, each one making the ground shake more and more. It also sent the shattered earth flying down on the soldiers' heads. What was that just now? Magic? What a deafening sound. And those tremors and storms of dusty was so powerful? Look up there. There's smoke. The race that were there firing that wide-range magic? You've gotta be kidding me. No way we fight against that. Let's just run. The soldiers, all of whom haven't seen a cannon before, thought that the attack just now was some kind of magic. Seeing such tremendous power filled them with dread, prompting them to escape to as far a place as possible. Idle-sama? It's too dangerous. At this rate, we won't be able to approach. Calm yourself. Look closely at the ground. Not that much has holes in them. As the cloud of dust gradually cleared, they were able to see the condition of the ground ahead. While the ground was gouged quite deeply here and there were about 10 or so meters between the holes. That meant that compared to a volley of arrows, the chances of receiving a direct hit should be lower. Be lucky and don't die. Go, oh. The remaining soldiers gave a do-or-die shout and then simultaneously restarted their march toward the capital. However, as though to snatch away their newfound resolve, another volley of cannon fire descended upon them. Thunder, tremors, and flying dirt happened once again. Some soldiers couldn't endure the fear anymore and left. In truth though, the cannon projectiles didn't hit anybody even once. This was unfortunately not noticed by anyone. After a while, they finally made it to the capital's gates. At that point, the Albert army was reduced to only 5,000 soldiers. Alright, the cannon scare tactic worked well. Now then, everyone fall back. Through the body double on top of the walls, I gave the instruction to retreat to the dwarves. In this kingdom at least, no one has used cannons in warfare. That was likely because they focused more on developing martial arts and magic but didn't put much attention to developing weaponry. So, when our cannons made a roaring sound and produced a wide explosion on the ground in front of them, they probably thought it was some kind of magic. If they knew what a cannon was, there was a chance they would have been less scared. They'd even be less scared if they knew we were aiming at only the ground and not them. A way to put it was that we were just bluffing with our cannon shots. That being said, we still managed to reduce their numbers. Even with a reduced number of troops though, my father was unsurprisingly not deterred from charging toward the capital's gate. Gayan? Yes, sir. Why? At the very front was a man named Gayan. Standing at over 2 meters tall, he was quite a giant of a man. This was, without a doubt, one of the so-called 4 generals of my father. While riding a horse that seemed small because of him, he wielded a club and headed straight to the gate at great speeds. Asterisk doggo asterisk. Like that, he swung his club against the gate. That single blow destroyed the said gate, allowing him to pass through at novel bin at. What power! He probably possessed some kind of gift. With a person who could do something like that, it was no wonder the Albert army was unmatched in castle sieges. On a side note, gifts that granted overwhelming power to people was another reason why weaponry development had such low priority. Oh well, it's still within our assumptions. The Albert army got into the capital and were now headed toward the palace. However, when about half of them had made it into the capital, I rebuilt the destroyed gate. The gate fixed itself? We can't get in? The gate suddenly reappearing before them, the soldiers at the back were forced to stop. That resulted in nearly 3,000 soldiers being unable to enter the capital. I had already incorporated the royal capital into my village, so not only was I able to build walls, I was also able to do other things like instantly rebuilding the destroyed gate. My father didn't seem aware of what happened to those in the rear. At the very least he didn't stop the march of the remaining 2,000 soldiers toward the palace. The end of this battle was getting closer and closer. Where is the rear guard? Damn, the vanguard doesn't look like they'll stop. We have no choice but to continue forward as well. Zugagagago? What? Where did that wall ahead come from? Shit, let's get around it. Zugagagago? Zugagagago? There are walls to the left and right now. Zugagagago? And now behind us? Aren't we caged in now? The Albert army advanced toward the palace through the main street, but their numbers kept on decreasing. The reason for that were the walls that suddenly appeared and caged in those in the rear. By the time my father noticed it, they were reduced to only a force of 300. Edel-sama, we only have a few hundred soldiers left. At this rate, taking the palace won't be easy. It doesn't matter. The few that remains are our best soldiers. They're more than strong enough. Even that situation wasn't enough to dampen Lord Albert's fighting spirit. If anything, his fighting spirit has only grown fiercer. Fuhahaha, it's as Edel-sama says, there's no fortress that the 4 generals can't take down, but right now Teire's only 3 of us. Ho ho ho, the 3 of us are enough. I must say though, how many years has it been since we have been cornered like this? I'm raring to go. The general's fighting spirit wasn't dampened at all as well. Zugagagago? When they were near the royal palace, a huge wall rose from the ground and blocked their path. Fuhahaha, this is nothing. Prepare to get crushed, wall. Ho ho ho, leave this one to me. Maribella? The general named Maribella invoked magic. After he finished, a mass of earth appeared out of nowhere in front of the wall and formed a slope. He was an outstanding magician who specialized in using yellow magic. By creating and controlling the earth, he could change the terrain of the battlefield according to his will. Through the slope up as well as the slope down he made later, the Albert army went over the wall with ease. Afterwards, they reached the vast plaza in front of the palace. In that plaza, their enemies awaited. Ho ho ho, by my estimate, there's only 500 or so of them. Our numbers might be reduced, but an enemy force of this size can't dream of holding us back. It's possible that there are enemy troops hiding somewhere. Fuhahahaha, they can use whatever trick they want, our victory is guaranteed. Let's beat them all. Charge, at novel bin at. Upon receiving Lord Albert's command, the remaining 300 soldiers simultaneously whipped their horses. These soldiers were the elites of the elites who had triumphed over many battlefields with the Marquis. Many of them possessed combat-related gifts, so even though there were only so many of them left, they were confident that they could take back the royal palace. However, just before they clashed with the enemy soldiers, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath them vanished. Wah! The soldiers fell to the large hole that wasn't there just a moment ago. The hole in question was about 2 meters deep. Although they had to get off of their horses, the strong-bodied soldiers managed to fall safely. As soon as they landed, a volley of arrows rained down on them from above. The soldiers managed to survive, but their horses received heavy damage and were no longer usable. Ho ho ho, my time to shine. Maribella once again made a slope. The now horseless soldiers used that to climb out of the hole. Despite all that just happened, the soldiers were just as fearless in charging forward, if not more. Let's go, kill them all. Their enemies who had a mishmash of armor and equipment should not even be able to put up a good fight unless their enemies did something truly desperate. And yet, time after time, their enemies have been toying with them so much. As to be expected, the soldiers had now reached their limits of their patience. Nevertheless, this battle was about to be concluded and the way to determine the winner was through close quarters combat. Unfortunately, something the Albert army totally didn't expect was about to happen. Just like what I did when I fought Raoul's army, I made a moat beneath the Albert soldiers' feet and made the ground they were standing on vanish. However, as to be expected of Father's most elite soldiers, they were able to land on the bottom of the moat quite safely. Even so, that move succeeded in taking out their horses out of action. That was more than enough for me. It was quite troublesome to deal with mounted charges, after all. The 500 or so troops we deployed in front of the palace were composed of villagers as well as of adventurers who were using our village as their base of operations. Equipped with weapons and armors made in the village, they clashed with the Albert soldiers as soon as the latter made it out of the moat. By the way, the soldiers of the capital and the palace had expressed their intention to participate in the fight, but we had deemed it best for them to stand by within the palace in the meantime. To be frank, it was because we thought they were far inferior to our villagers and adventurers. After all, their actual combat experience wasn't much. They had high social status, sure, but the other noble soldiers were far stronger than them. Who are these guys? They're so strong. The Albert troops likely expected to easily crush us, but they were being pushed back instead. It wasn't just because we had the numerical advantage, our troops' ability outmatched theirs without a doubt. They had the advantage experience-wise, but that much wasn't enough to close the gap brought by gifts and skills. All this and I still haven't used my villager enhancement village skill. Fool, you think you can defend against my attack? Even Gayan, one of the generals, was struggling. Despite being capable of destroying a castle gate with a single hit from his club, Gayan was being kept in check by Noelkun who possessed the Shield Master technique gift. Ho ho ho, 2 swords and ice magician you must be as you rate as Frozen Blade Princess. Maribella, another general, was completely being held back by Selen. They have people who can go toe-to-toe with the generals? Don't falter, we must not lose here. Their morale remained strong, but the Albert army's inferiority in this battle was clear. Except to one person. HMMP? Gah! My father swung his sword and caused a shockwave to occur. That much alone was enough to send multiple people flying. Courageous villagers have been challenging him consecutively, but none of their attacks have hit so far. That man is extraordinary. So, that's your father, huh? Yeah. To be honest, I don't think we can take him down. By my side and shooting arrows was Philia-san. She was quite astonished by the strength of my father. By the way, I have been using my villager enhancement on the villagers fighting my father, but it still wasn't enough. Even our Balrith-san couldn't do a thing. Maybe even Noelkun won't last a minute despite focusing on defense. Fohahahaha, nothing less from Edelsama. No matter how much you get our numbers down, as long as we have Edelsama, we can't lose. Ho ho ho, never mind being worth 1,000 soldiers, Edelsama's worth 10,000. Even by himself, he can turn the tide of any battle. While 2 of the 4 generals rejoiced at the prospect of their victory, my father looked and then charged straight at me. Luke, you've made me completely angry. I'll send you to the afterlife with my own hands. So scary, at novel bin at. Like I'd let you? Well, protect the chief. You weaklings are in the way? Gah! Our village troops tried to stand in the way, but they were unable to put a stop on father's charge. Philia-san tried to shoot arrows at him too, but they were all cut down and deflected. And when there was only about 10 meters between us, my father's whole body began to shine brilliantly. It was similar to what Raoul showed before in intense fighting aura. I won't let you. However, someone suddenly jumped in front of father and forced him to defend himself with his sword. As soon as father recognized who it was, his eyes were wide open. Raoul, I won't let you harm my brother, you shitty father. Chiu little. Raoul, I won't let you harm my brother, you shitty father. Chiu little. The one to intercept father's charge was Raoul. Realizing what Raoul's words and actions meant, father shouted angrily. Raoul, you brat, are you really betraying me? Raoul was then sent flying. He managed to land safely and even gave a snort. HMP, betray you? When the hell did I ever become your ally, huh? TCH. I've always hated that piece of shit Luke, but you know who I hate most? You shitty father. While shouting so, Raoul leapt forward. Tell me, what have you ever done for me? You've pushed me and my mother to a remote corner of your castle. You forgot about us? But as soon as you found out that I have the same gift as you, you're suddenly my father? TCH. Ever since I was a kid, I vowed to beat you up and make you kneel before me? Raoul let out such words as well as a storm of slashes. Father, who has overwhelmed all his opponents thus far, have been put entirely on the defensive. Compared to when he led an attack against the village, Raoul has definitely gotten stronger. He has surely undergone rigorous training since then. However, each and every one of you should just do what I tell you to do. After shouting, father began counterattacking and turned the tables all at once. GHH. Against father's fierce attacks, Raoul was barely keeping up. Unfortunately, despite his best efforts, some attacks were slipping through his defenses and he was steadily becoming wounded all over his body. Ha, Gua. Raoul was sent flying again, only this time, He crashed on the ground and tumbled some distance. He managed to get up right away, but if his coarse breathing was any indication, he was nearly at his limit. On the other hand, father still seemed composed. It was almost like his strength was bottomless. As to be expected, when two people possess the same gift, experience using that gift was a significant factor. And father had years and decades over Raoul. At this moment, it was clear even to Raoul himself that he could not win. Expected as much from you, my shitty father. It really looks like it's impossible to bring you down with just my power, isn't it? I hate to do this, but I don't think I have any choice but to get some help from that Gyoe, brother. Do it? Upon receiving that signal from Raoul, I nodded. All right. Villager enhancement? Back when we just took back the royal capital from the Albert army, Raoul secretly sent a messenger out. According to that messenger, he wanted to meet me while he was marching toward the capital. Father's strength is out of the ordinary. You can keep on fighting him until he reaches his limit, but by then, you would have suffered great damage. Yeah, he is worrisome. I have an idea. An idea? I'll fight him. You will? Yeah. You already know that I hate you to death, but more than I hate you, I hate our shitty father. If I get a once-in-a-lifetime chance to beat him down, I'll tolerate cooperating with you. Hate me to death. Oi, are you shocked or something? Whatever, that doesn't matter right now. What matters is that even though I have the same gift, I still wouldn't be able to beat him. That's where you come in. You have a power that lets you strengthen an ally, right? How'd you know about that? Apparently, when Raoul was fighting with Noel-kun back then, he noticed a large spike in Noel-kun's strength. Use that on me. You have to be registered as my villager first though. Are you sure? I fucking hate it, but fine. If that's what it takes to beat that shitty father. And that was how Raoul came to offer his assistance at Novel bin Adat. Make Raoul a villager? Yes no. I needed to make him a villager before anything else, so I selected yes. Villager enhancement? Ha. This is amazing. So much power? 5 minutes? Be mindful of that time limit? That will be more than enough. I had doubled Raoul's fighting capabilities, resulting in a time limit of 5 minutes. Let's settle this, you shitty father. Eno, we will make you know the taste of defeat. Raoul, drink this. I tossed a bottle of potion to Raoul after strengthening him through villager enhancement. Glug glug ha. This is great. All my wounds vanished just like that. As soon as Raoul found an opening, he drank the potion and all his wounds from before vanished. You'll make me know the taste of defeat? Do you still not realize the gap between our strength? You're the one who doesn't realize. Can't you see I'm so much stronger than before? Chow did. Enough talk. I want to beat you up right away, you shitty father. Probably mindful of villager enhancement's time limit, Raoul said so and then kicked the ground. For a moment there, I lost sight of him. When I next saw him, he had closed the gap with father already. Wah. Careless? This ends now? Sword clashed against sword, producing a loud metallic, clanging sound. Father was having a hard time defending against Raoul's slashes, and eventually, Raoul's overwhelming power caused father to rise to the air. Such power? Father was able to do a safe landing, but the moment he did so, Raoul has already approached to follow up. What's wrong, father? Is that all you can do? As to be expected of doubling Raoul's strength, he not only closed the gap in power between them, he was even overwhelming father. This is stupid. How can I? Upon seeing Raoul's drive and terrifying strength as well as father being pushed back in a duel, the soldiers around them unintentionally stopped fighting and watched. Oi, why is Raoul-sama? More importantly, look, Edel-sama's struggling against him. This is just a joke, right? Unfortunately, because Raoul had a time limit, that meant that even at this point, victory wasn't guaranteed. That said, if things kept going like this, he should be able to defeat father before that deadline. But then, there was suddenly an impact in my back. Wondering what could have caused it, I nervously turned around. There, I saw the last of my father's generals. This rather small man had stabbed me in the back with a dagger. The reason why Raoul-sama is suddenly this strong as you, Luke-sama, so, we should deal with you first. This man with a peculiar way of talking was named Pipanel. His specialty was assassination through excellent covert action. He was capable of completely erasing his own presence, just like what he did now. By sneaking into enemy lines and killing the enemy's commanders without anyone noticing, he could win a war all by himself. This dagger is laced with poison. In 10 seconds you won't be able to move at all. So, it was you. No wonder I didn't sense anything even when you were near. My map was showing you as a red dot this whole time though. Why are you so calm after being stabbed? No, before that aren't you bleeding? Oh, that's because this is a body double. While in this body, I didn't really feel pain and poison didn't have much effect if any at all. A body double would vanish after receiving a certain amount of damage, but it didn't seem like I've crossed that threshold just yet. You're using the term body double in a strange way. You bastard? What have you done to Luke-sama? Don't expect mercy. My consciousness then returned to my real body. From this new vantage point, I saw the nearby villagers getting furious and attacking Pipanel. No, I'm alright though. I waved my hand and tried to say I was perfectly fine, but maybe due to being blinded by rage, none of them noticed me at Novel bin Adat. Luke-sama, hurry, drink this potion? Don't panic, I'm fine. That was just one of my body doubles. In no time at all, the villagers managed to pin down Pipanel and proceeded to beat him up. More importantly, how is the battle between Raoul and father going? Edel Albert's life began with Lossat at Novel bin Adat. When he was but 8 years old, a neighboring territory attacked theirs and took over the whole area including their capital. That attack also led to the death of his father who personally led their soldiers against the enemies. Along with his mother, he managed to escape from their now former territory. However, from then on, he had no choice but to live a considerably harsher life displaced from his home. Mother, why can't we go back home? Because somebody has taken it away from us. Why? Because we're weak. If we were strong, they wouldn't take it away? Yes, they wouldn't have. If anything, we would be the ones doing the taking. If we're strong we can be the ones doing the talking as long as we're strong. These experiences he had at such a young age has made Edel's resolve strong. I'll become stronger than everybody, and I'll be the one doing the taking. Never again will others take things away from me. And when Edel turned 12, he received through the rite of blessing the sword master technique gift. Soon enough, this lad was successful in taking back his home. However, he wasn't satisfied with just that. He took over neighboring territories one after the other. Eventually, he was recognized as one of the 5 superpowers in Kingdom. And upon defeating his greatest rival, Marquis Schnegger, he was finally ready to assume control of the kingdom. In all these years of conquest, he has not suffered defeat, not even once. No matter how disadvantageous or ill-advised a battle might seem to an observer, Edel still managed to win every single time. That is, until this day. This is stupid, how can I? Edel was unable to keep up with Raoul's movements now that the latter suddenly gained so much power. Be it speed or power, Edel just couldn't compete. Edel found it ridiculous that he could be beaten in a one-on-one fight. Especially so against his own son who was just a lad of 15 years of age. They might have the same gift, but the difference between their skills should be like heaven and earth. Gyu, ha, you're nearly done? Raoul's quick attacks have gradually slowed Edel down. So many attacks were slipping past Edel's defenses and cutting him all over his body. It was almost like Raoul was painting the air with Edel's blood splashes. It has been some time since an enemy has landed so many attacks on Edel. And as though his old wounds reopened and added to his bonus fatigue, Edel's movements grew slower once more. I can't lose here. Give up already, you shitty father? Gah? Edel received a heavy blow, causing him to be stagger and fall down. It was such a serious wound that he couldn't stand back up. Soon enough, a pool of his own blood began to form underneath him. Even then though, the fight in Edel's eyes never left. I can't fall here, this kingdom needs me power. Say that again? The neighboring kingdoms are certain to be aiming for this country of ours that's always been engulfed in internal fighting? We can't afford to keep on fighting one another? As soon as we unite the kingdom, we would launch our offensive? Take before they take things away from us. If we take over every kingdom, no one be left to take things away from us. Edel's hometown was taken over by somebody when he was young. This time, a similar fate might happen to the entire kingdom. So, what you're saying is, with you at the top, this kingdom can become stronger than any other kingdom. Exactly. Through Muo can always be the ones doing the taking. Can you really still say that now? Use your eyes and look at your soldiers. Only upon being prompted did Edel notice that all sounds of fighting have ceased in the surroundings. Nervously, Edel turned to look. Wah! Edel's elite soldiers have all been defeated. Some have been wounded badly, some tied up with rope. Regardless, there was no one else who could fight. Forgive me, Edel-sama. They're stronger than we expected. Even the generals have been defeated and restrained. On the other hand, the few enemy soldiers that were wounded have already received medical treatment, so their numbers remained mostly the same. You've lost as a commander to Luke. That is the reality of things. I am posse. Can a loser like you really say that you're the best choice for making this kingdom strong? Ha, don't make me laugh. I still haven't lost, I can't lose. After hearing Raoul's harsh words, Edel summoned the last of his strength and charged forward. Edel and Raoul's swords clashed once more. Clang? I haven't lost. As long as I defeat you and the rest I'm the winner. Asterisk snap. Asterisk. Edel's sword suddenly broke in half, sending one part to dance in the air until it hit the ground. Much like Edel himself, the sword has reached its limit after such a fierce fight. Accept your defeat. Edel had no more power to defend himself. Like that, Raoul mercilessly swung his sword. Slash. Gay. A rain of blood fell to the surroundings. Zugagagagago. The village has departed from the royal capital and heartily made its way across the land. It was headed northeast. Yes, it was going back to the wasteland it has occupied before. We had won against the Albert army led by my father and successfully held the royal capital. But now that our business there was over, there was no reason for the village to remain adjacent to the capital. Say, Luke, are you really sure about this? About what? The king personally asked you to serve in the palace, didn't he? Plus, he wanted to granted you peerage. Nah, that kind of thing's not for me. Being able to live peacefully in the wasteland as a simple village chief is more than enough for me. I reaffirmed my decision to Selen. A simple village chief? You say I don't think a simple village chief can move an entire village like this though. When I decided to respectfully turn down the king's offer, the king and the princess both looked terribly saddened. Understanding now more than ever how much the kingdom must change, the king was determined to implement reforms. The court nobles, having learned their lesson, were generally in support of the king's proposed reforms. It seemed like the kingdom would become more united in the future. Not that it mattered, but some villagers have expressed some crazy statements like, now that we've taken the royal palace, Luke-sama should become king. It was fine that they thought highly of me, but recently, the number of radical villagers seemed to have increased. I wonder why though. But I did leave behind a body double to support the king in my stead though. You're wise as always, Luke-sama. In other words, Luke-sama intends to gradually take over behind the scenes. By the time they notice it, Luke-sama has already become the one truly running this kingdom. Fufufu. Luke-sama's foresight is truly magnificent. I had the feeling that Milio was thinking of something off the mark. At any rate, for the crime of insurgency against the crown, the original Albert territory was confiscated and placed under the direct control of the royal family. Also, the lands captured by father, including Marquis Schneger's territory, were returned to their former rulers. In light of the fact that another Albert was responsible for stopping father, some considerations were given to our family. Firstly, the governor to be installed in the original Albert territory was father's younger brother. Unlike father, he was mild-mannered and also disliked war. When he was a teen, he left the Albert territory to study in the royal capital. In time, he apparently worked as a civil official in the palace. Truth be told, this position as governor was actually offered to Raoul, but he turned it down. Another reason the royal family has fallen this much is that the kingdom's army is just as too weak. I'm going to join them and make sure they're tough enough. The king has apparently approved of Raoul's plan. If the kingdom's army becomes stronger to the point where they could intervene in the disputes between nobles, the kingdom's internal wars might subside and eventually become a thing of the past. And then, of course, there was my father, the principal offender. Raoul's sword attack dealt a heavy wound that could have been fatal if not for the power of our potions. That said, father was still unconscious last I heard. As soon as he wakes up, he would be put to trial, a trial that would assuredly give him a death sentence. All things considered, what an absurd gift he has. He has remade the entire palace so quickly. And now, to rebuild the rest of the capital. And this was all done by a so-called body double. I can't tell it apart from the real one. As a form of greeting, Luke's body double quickly began its work for the royal palace. It remade the palace into a tall building of over 100 meters tall. Much like the real Luke, the body double had a tendency to overdo things. Luke-sama are so amazing. When I ascend to the throne someday, I want Luke-sama to be my prince consort. Without the king or the double noticing, the princess was fully enthralled just by looking at the double. At that moment, however, urgent news, Your Majesty? What is it? Lord Alberthes, he's escaped from his cell? What did you say? When Lord Albert escaped from the palace's dungeon, the entire palace has descended into a state of panic. Meanwhile, at a place far from the capital, ho, quite superb, Neon. You might not have been able to defend the palace, but at least you got something out of staying there at novel bin at. Silence. I don't want to hear that talk from someone who failed to retake the palace. Let's not fight. Exactly. There's no point anymore in blaming each other. These people were Lord Albert's closest aides, the so-called 4 generals. The generals were defeated and imprisoned, but they were now navigating their way through the palace safely thanks to Neon's prior knowledge of the palace's structure. Aside from the 4, there was one other person in their group. Edel-sama, what are we to do from here on? We're now fugitives. If we are to try to take this kingdom once again, we must first find a place where we can compose ourselves. Yes, despite the security placed on him, Edel has escaped not just from his cell but from the capital itself. I'm no longer interested in this kingdom. No matter how many weak people we gather and train, in the end, those people would still be weak. It's not worth the effort. Ho, I see. I couldn't agree more. Yes, leading that kind of army isn't worth it. I would rather know just how much stronger I can become as a combatant. After that, Lord Albert, now simply Edel Albert, walked forward. The other 4 looked at his dependable back and followed after him as though it was the most natural thing to do. Fohahaha, that's Edel-sama for ya. I don't know about you, but I'd like to accompany him in this new path. Ho, I won't let you steal a march on me now, Gayan. Mary Bella Ito, I'm going to follow Edel-sama come blood or tearsil stay. It seems we're all of the same thought. Like that, their group made their escape from the kingdom. Even such that underground path that we used to escape was its entrance in a place like a castle dungeon of all places? Ta-ta-ta-da. Congratulations. Because you now have more than 300,000 villagers, your village has become level 11. 3 million village points have been acquired as level up bonus. You can now build more kinds of facilities. Maximum village area has been increased. The village skill teleportation has been acquired. The citizens of the territories that were directly controlled by the royal family, including the royal capital, were all registered as my villagers. Thanks to that surge, my villager count exceeded the 300,000 mark and made my village level go up. That was not to say that my villager count was at just 300,000. The royal capital alone added 50,000 villagers. The other territories controlled by the royal family added about 150,000. And when the royal family assumed control of the original Albert territory, another 200,000 villagers were added. That meant, I gained over 400,000 new villagers all of a sudden. By the way, I had a total of about 160,000 villagers before this surge happened. Of course, this villager count was only for the sake of my gift. I had no power over them. Well, I could use my village skills on them, like using villager appraisal to look at some of their personal information, but I didn't rule over them. As for the number of villagers that were actually living in the village in the wasteland, there were about 20,000 of them. It could be said that those 20,000 people were my actual villagers. 20,000 is still so many though. By the way, the village has returned to the wasteland without incident. The travelers and merchants who had arrived while the village was absent had quite a panic when they saw the village's walls approaching. They later expressed the surprise and dread they felt that time. I built a stone monument saying the village has temporarily moved to the royal capital. Village Chief Luke, so maybe that was why they waited there. Maybe next time, I should leave out the temporary part and just write the village has moved instead. Not that there would be a next time. That aside, the new village skill I learned is teleportation. Does it let me move to a place I want to go to right away? I immediately tried it out. Upon starting, the map appeared before me. I see. So, it lets me move only to a place I've been to before. Plus, it has to be within what is recognized as part of my village. For the moment, I decided to teleport to the village's gate. The next moment I knew, the said gate was in front of me. Chief Luke, where did you come from? Sorry to trouble you. I waved my hand at the startled guard and then went to reason. Whoa, this is so great. I can travel this far in just an instant. El Luke-sama? Hello, Mitchell-san. I see that the king's spy is still working as a governor. Huh. Smirk. When I jokingly said so, Mitchell-san's face stiffened. I beg your forgiveness for that time, Luke-sama. But I swear to you, I am no longer working as a spy. By the king's command, Mitchell-san infiltrated the Albert territory and eventually became a governor. Even after the recent events, he was still the governor in charge of Reason, the largest city in the northern region of the Albert territory. Since the royal family was in direct control of the Albert territory, including the north, it was a simple matter of commanding Mitchell-san to remain as governor. Haha, I was just joking, Mitchell-san. I can understand that you had no other solution but to do what you did. At that, Mitchell-san breathed a sigh of relief. But it doesn't mean that I forgive you, you know. Wha? I said such a mischievous thing and then used teleportation again. After trying out various things, I confirmed that I could really travel instantly anywhere within what was recognized as my village. Moreover, it seemed like I could also bring villagers with me at Novel Bin Adat. Amazing? We can really travel to the royal capital with this? I guess I can come home anytime now. Selen? Since when did you get here? Milia and Selen were astonished when I brought them with me. Almost as surprised as them, if not more, was Selan's father, the current head of the Bazureta noble house. Yes, the place I brought them was Selan's family's castle. Transferring my consciousness to a body double was pretty comparable to teleporting to that location. However, that was if I was only teleporting myself. Being able to teleport with a villager completely changes things. I didn't know yet up to how many villagers I could teleport with me at the same time, but no matter what number that might be, I still probably would have used teleport if I had it at the time over moving the entire village all the way to the capital. I guess we should back now. You two don't have to stick so close to me, you know. Selen was grabbing on one of my arms and Milia the other. In order to teleport somebody with me, there must be physical contact apparently. However, just holding hands was enough and there was absolutely no need to get this close. I just want to avoid getting left behind at a place like this as much as possible, you see. Hey, what do you mean a place like this? This is still my family home, you know? Can you not quarrel while I'm here between you two? Yup, they're not hearing what I'm saying. At any rate, I apologized to Selan's father for the whatever trouble we caused and brought the two still bickering back to the village. Aside from the village skill, I also unlocked new types of buildings that I could build. They were as follows. Beauty Salon, 200. Railway, 50. Railway Station, 500. Museum, 500. Factory, 1,500. What? Railways and railway stations? Beauty Salon, 200. A facility for improving one's appearance. Make everyone pretty. Railway, 50. The path for trains to travel on. Allows for mass transport of people and cargo. Has a function that prevents monsters from coming near. Railway Station, 500. A terminal for trains. It is the place where people and cargo board and alight. Comes with a train. Historical Museum, 500. A facility for preserving and exhibiting various relics. Also allows for examining and studying said relics. Prevents the deterioration of the relics. Has security features to prevent crimes. Improves the villagers' culture. Factory, 1,500. A facility for the mass production of various goods. Safety first. My village level went up, and I became able to build new kinds of facilities. All of them seemed noteworthy, but what surprised me the most was, I can build railways and stations now? It goes without saying, but in this world, this kind of transportation system hasn't existed yet. I wanted to build one as soon as possible, so I immediately went to a vacant space near the ramparts. I guess I'll start with a station. What appeared was a relatively simple train station. Inside the simple building was 2 sets of platforms. There were also 2 platforms that sandwiched 2 sets of railways. Parked on each of the railways was a single car train. I went inside of the trains and immediately felt nostalgic. Yup, it almost feels like the trains I used to ride in my previous life. I then entered the driver's compartment and sat on the seat there. I was too short to see what's ahead though. Fine, I'll kneel on top of the seat. I'll ride them, but how do I drive a train anyway? There were so many levers, buttons, and meters, but I had no clue what each one did. There's no else here, so I guess it's fine to just try things out. I mean, it might not even start. While thinking that, I heard a shout from behind me. What the heck? I turned myself around and saw that Selen had gotten on board. I thought for a moment there that this was some kind of worm monster. It's called a train, Selen. A tren? Yup, a train. This, AHM, is a vehicle that travels on laid-out track on the ground. This thing moves? I wonder which button I should press. Well, the doors open, so, AHH, is this it? PSHHHHHHHHHHH? Selen's reaction to the sudden closing of the doors was to be ready to draw her swords. It's alright, it's alright. I just closed the doors. After that, I proceeded to press buttons and pull levers left and right until I finally figured out how to get the train to move forward. Once I pulled this lever, it'll finally move, right? But, I wonder, how can it move at all? There were no overhead power lines that could provide it with electricity, and the railways didn't seem to transmit power either. But then again, considering we already had houses in the village which had electricity and gas flowing into them, it might be too late to wonder about the source now. Wow, it's really moving? But shouldn't we stop soon? At novel bin at. Selen shouted so, fearing we would crash into the village's rampart. As quickly as I could, I used my facility customization to reshape the rampart to have a tunnel and then extend the railway tracks. Like that, the train went to the fields outside of the village. Well, technically, the fields were still part of the village though. We continued to cut through the fields until we were truly out of village and were in the wasteland. Clickety-clack asterisk. The train made such sounds, almost like it was humming a tune, as it dashed across the wasteland. It's so fast, and we're still speeding up? We've just left and we're already at end of wasteland? It's almost like we teleported? Hey, what's wrong? You've been quiet for a while now. Promise not to get angry? I can't promise that, but if you don't tell me now, I promise I will be angry. Wellsy, I don't know how to stop this thing. Phew, we stopped it somehow. Geez, I didn't think that'd happen. We managed to stop the train. I thought the lever I used earlier was just to accelerate the train, but it turned out it could be used as a brake as well. I simply had to move the lever to the other end. Had I not figured that out, I might have had to endlessly lay tracks just so the train wouldn't crash. Now, how should we go back? If all we wanted was to return, we could simply use teleportation. However, that method would have us leave behind the train in the wasteland. Can this thing move in reverse? Only one end has a driver's compartment though, but trains sometimes go just a tiny bit beyond their designated stop points, and I don't think they use the other cockpit for a simple repositioning like that. Maybe this one has that function as well. Let's see, maybe it's this one? When I looked closely, I saw a lever with signs that said forward and reverse. I shifted the lever toward the sign that said reverse. When I once again moved the lever for accelerating and stopping the train, it now made the train move backwards. You know, if cities have this train thing, going from one city to the other will be so much easier. Yup. Transporting large amounts of cargo will be easier too. It might be too late to mention this, but a train was definitely not a facility for a place that's on the scale of only a village. That's amazing. Alright, let's go connect them up. Wait, no, we can't decide that by ourselves. We have to get the permission of each ruler first. Plus, we needed to teach some people how to drive the train first. Moreover, trains should run in a controlled manner in order to avoid accidents and overall slowdowns. We needed people for that too. Even then, it might be too much for our village. Yeah, I get it. I thought up of a good idea. Let's outsource it. Oh, Village Chief Luke, welcome. We're always so thankful to you and your body double. As you've probably already seen, the royal palace and the capital itself has been beautifully rebuilt. After we returned to the village with the train, I went to the royal capital through the use of teleportation. I had already secured an appointment via my body double, so I was able to have an audience with the king without any trouble. So, what can I do for you today? Well, I want to set up a railway system in the kingdom and I'd like to ask your help in it. A railway system? Yes, my plan was to entrust the railway system's management to the kingdom. After all, a government body would have a considerably easier time overseeing a project of this scale. Of course, this benefited the kingdom as well. The kingdom was in the middle of reorganizing itself, and the profits that could be gained from the railway system should definitely help in that endeavor. I think it'll be faster to show you what it is. Is now a good time for it? Very well. I want to see it too. The princess interjected like that. Some civil officials expressed their desires to come along as well after that. Alright, first, let's all join hands at novel bin at. Join hands? Despite being half in doubt, they formed a large circle and joined hands. For some reason though, the princess rushed toward my side. Asterisk I'm holding hands with Luke same There's no more doubt about it now, we have to be together. Asterisk. The princess had the same aura Milia sometimes had. Nah, it must be just my imagination. I tried to not think about it and focused instead on the matter at hand. Once I calmed myself, I proceeded to teleport everyone with me. What? Where? We're outside of the capital right now. The others were surprised when their field of vision suddenly changed. At the moment, we were near the rebuilt great walls of the royal capital. It was here that I decided to build a railway station. Welcome to a railway station. Inside of it, you'll find what is called a train. I guided the group into the station and then into the train. Is this enormous box? Yes. It moves along those metal tracks over there. You'll get what I mean soon enough. For now, please take a seat and observe. While the king's group was examining the inside of the train saying stuff like this couch is so comfortable, what's this thing hanging here? I rang a horn. Fui-an? Alright, let's depart. Fui-an? What was that sound? Is it an enemy attack? While the king's group were recovering from being surprised by the horn I activated, I made the train go forward. Wah? It's dangerous to stand still, so please take a seat. At the very least, please grab hold of those straps. Is this thing really moving? This huge metal box? The train was steadily gaining speed. In an almost childlike wonder, the king's group knelt on the seat and leaned toward the windows to see the scenery that we were quickly passing by at Novel bin at. Amazing, the capital's already so far away. A carriage can't ever hope to match this speed. While extending the railways, I said something to them. How about we keep going until we reach the Albert territory's capital? If we go at full speed, we should be there in about an hour, I think. In an hour? A journey like that would have normally taken a few days though. This train's top speed was about 150 kilometers per hour. We didn't need to make a stopover anywhere, so we should be able to reach our destination in about an hour, give or take a few. The wind feels so nice. We're traveling so fast, yet there's barely any shaking. Why, I think I can even fall sound asleep. The group seemed to be getting accustomed to the train and were beginning to relax little by little. But just imagine it, something like this throughout the entire kingdom as we know it will surely change all at once. I agree. After all, it was because of the geographical issues that the kingdom was forced to entrust the governance of each region to the local lords. So, if this can solve or at least lessen the impact of those geographical issues, it would become much simpler to assess the state of each region. The royal family's power will also be able to reach. While the officials were discussing like that among themselves, the Albert territory's capital came into view. Huh? His Majesty is coming for a visit? Hang Albert, Luke's uncle and the one assigned to be the governor of the original Albert territory, suddenly received such a report from a body double. And they'll be arriving soon, you say? Why am I then only hearing about this now? While expressing his frustrations to his nephew's double, Hang hurriedly stood up to make preparations for the king's arrival. But why is His Majesty even coming here? Huh? We should go outside of city? The double able to use whatever village skill the original Kaolduzade teleportation and brought Hang outside of the city's walls. What is that? It's coming over here. What Hang saw in the distance was a fast-approaching rectangular object. He was pretty sure it wasn't a carriage. He couldn't see any horse pulling it, after all. Wait, is that wagon or whatever it is moving on its own? No, of course not, that's impossible. Hang outright deemed the idea as impossible, but as the object grew closer and closer, he was forced to reconsider. What's going on? When that sound could be heard, the double promptly made a railway station. It was that station where the large, rectangular object stopped. Before it stopped though, Hang couldn't help but scream at the top of his lungs and fall down on his rear. Pshhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh. My goodness, we really made it here in just an hour. Luke Sama never fails to impress. Upon realizing he was in the presence of the king, Hang knelt down as quickly as he could. Why, Your Majesty, thank you for gracing us with your visit. You came all this way to welcome us? The king was quite surprised when he noticed Hang. Well, sorry for the sudden visit. I myself didn't expect to arrive here so soon. If I may, Your Majesty, what is that thing? I don't know much about it, truly, but it's called a train. A train? By riding this, we were able to travel from the capital all the way here in just an hour. In just an hour? Almost like ignoring Hang's confusion, his nephew assumed to be the real one and not a double spoke. Alright, how about we return to the royal capital now? Can we return by train? The king seemed to have been pleased with the thing called trains. My plan to entrust the management of the railway system to the kingdom was a success, likely because I presented my case to the king himself. Things like discussing with each local lord as well as the planning for the railway's route have all been taken from my hands. Of course, the actual building of the railway system was still up to me. Well, more accurately, to my body doubles. Also, after much deliberation, we have decided that instead of building the railway system above ground, we would build it under. Trains and railways weren't common knowledge yet in this world. So, if we built it above ground, a lot of people would be curious what the tracks were for and probably be run over by the trains. In other words, I had to first build the underground tunnels that would connect the cities to each other. Like this though, we would be able to install the railway system with minimal changes to the landscapes of the involved cities. The line from the royal capital to our wasteland Villagebiway of the original Albert's capital and Riesna's been given approval already. These areas were under the direct control of the royal family, after all. After my body doubles have finished building it, we would likely hold a test run. Luke, let's go ride the train again? Luke Sama, why didn't you take me with you as well? Selen, who seemed to have enjoyed riding trains, asked me so with sparkling eyes. On the other hand, Milia looked at me reproachingly. Phew, I win? Selen looked triumphant for some reason. Didn't you ride the train purely by chance? Luke-sama? Urgent news. At that moment, Saturn contacted me via telepathy. He sounded quite flustered, so I readied myself for something troublesome. An absurd person just showed up in the village. An absurd person. The guards at the gate are handling it at the moment, but it's only a matter of time before that person insists on passing through at Novel Bin Adat. I checked my map right away. That's weird. If a dangerous person was forcing their way through the gate, they should show as a red dot on my map. However, I could see nothing of the sort. I decided that I should go look at things myself for the time being. Wait, I don't know what's going on, but take me with you? Sensing that I was troubled, Selin said so. Thinking about the worst case scenario, it would definitely be better to bring her along. Like that, we teleported to the gate. Like I've been saying, I'm not someone dangerous, geez. I came all the way for one reason and one reason only, to spread beauty. To everyone? A mysterious person insisted so to the guards surrounding them. This person was super large. At over 2 meters tall, they might be even taller than Doriel, the former bandit leader. They were more muscular than Doriel as well. To call this person a giant seemed quite fitting. Just like what their physique might suggest, their voice was awfully deep. Yet, the way they talked was completely girl-like. And then, there was their appearance. Their clothes were completely in pink and even had frills here and there, almost like a stereotypical princess. They even had a tiara on their head as well as ribbons to tie their long blonde hair into twin tails. Their face was full of makeup, but the masculine aspects of their face could still be seen. Especially their cleft chin. What is that creature? Selin saw them and took a step back. So did the guards for that matter. Lies? How can you spread beauty when there isn't an ounce of it from you? The only thing you'll be spreading to this village is misfortune? The guards yelled so, weapons in hand. OMG? How can you say that to a maiden? Even I would get angry, you know? HMP. The unknown giant became indignant and puffed their beautiful face. Their appearance certainly did have quite an impact, but based on my map, they didn't seem to be dangerous. And so, I spoke to them, albeit a bit nervously. Can you tell us a bit more? Ahemji, are you this village's chief? My, you're so cute. After hearing me introduce myself, she said so with sparkling eyes and while swaying her large body. See chief, it's dangerous here. Please stay back. The pale-faced guards tried to stop me, but I instead calmed them down. Geez, why are you treating me like I'm some kind of ogre? I'm a lady, you know. My name's Gori-Tiana. Feel free to call me Gori-chan though. Gori-chan? Yup, Gori-chan at Novel Bin Adat. I'm tired already. That said, she didn't seem to be a bad person. I mean, if she really was up to something nefarious, she would have tried not to stand out as much as possible. Selin and the guards were still on alert though, which was kind of understandable. After all, in this world, seeing people like her out in the public was probably a rare if not unprecedented thing. In my previous life though, meeting such people, albeit maybe not as conspicuous as her, wasn't unusual. Well then, Gori-chan, what did you come to our village for? Oh my, do you really want to know? Fantastic. As to be expected of the chief who built this village? I think I'm falling in love. Thanks. All things considered, it must be said that Gori-chan's muscles were quite formidable. The number of Makomen have recently grown in the village, but compared to her, they seemed quite normal. Considering she could train herself even more in this village. Back to your question. As you can plainly see, I am an evangelist of beauty. An evangelist of beauty? The beauty of a muscular body? Women must strive to be more beautiful? I have lived my life following that single belief, and I have been rewarded by becoming an embodiment of beauty itself. I did my best to hold back on retorting. So now, I want to spread that belief to as many women as possible, and to do just that, I've been traveling all over, making the women at each place I stop by as beautiful as I can. Of course, when I heard of this new village in the wasteland, I just had to come. I see. If pressed, all I was willing to say was that she sure had high aspirations. What nonsense? What part of you is the embodiment of beauty itself? In the first place, you're a man? The guards shouted so. However, Wao's a man. As though the guard spoke a taboo word, Gori-chan flipped out. With all her might, she stumped her right foot, leaving behind a giant crack in the ground. While my ears were still ringing from the sound that her stomp made, she closed her distance with a shivering guard. That guard was the same one that spoke the taboo word earlier. There's no denying I'm a lady, right? While holding the guard's face between her hands and pressing her face against his, Gori-chan asked so. She had a smile on her face, but her eyes weren't smiling at all. The guard was quite brawny himself, but next to Gori-chan, he looked almost like a child. Gori-chan then asked the shuddering guard once again. A lady, right? Yeah, yashala lady? Good answer. Mwah. After being kissed a mouth-to-mouth kiss at that by Gori-chan, the guard lost consciousness. Oh my, a single kiss got you so excited you fainted? You lack experience, honey. Her hips swaying, Gori-chan walked away from the guard. No matter how one looks at it, too much excitement was definitely not the reason the guard fainted. It seems a troublesome fellow has arrived in our village. In any case, I decided to let Gori-chan into the village. OMG, it's just like the rumors say. Everyone's so clean. I knew it. Beauty springs from good health. I was right in coming to this village. This is the best place for me to impart the spirit of beauty to others. Most of the time, immigrants would be stunned by things such as the village's buildings, so this kind of reaction was rather rare. Before anything else, I should apologize for earlier, don't I? I flew into quite a rage, Emmy. I'm so embarrassed. While holding her slightly reddened cheeks and wriggling her waist left and right, Gori-chan said so. No, don't worry about it. I'm also sorry for the way the guards reacted. That being said, I could understand why the guards lacked tact. Yufufu, you're so kind. Hey, Gori-chan said so while looking at me fondly. At that moment though, Selin cut into the conversation. You've been ogling at him for quite a while now? If you're a woman like you say you are, then I can't forgive you? It would seem that Selin has begun to recognize that Gori-chan was a woman. Oh my, are you perhaps the chief's wife? I'm not. Yet. Selin whispered something else toward the end there. For some reason though, Gori-chan her eyes sparkling clasped Selin's considerably smaller hands. How wonderful? You're smitten by the chief, aren't ya? I admit I'm already quite fond of the chief, but don't worry dear, I won't do something tasteless like get in your way. You want? Yup. Even better, I'd like to be of help. Let's Sayo you're cute as is, but if you let me work on you, I can make you even cuter. Really? Of course. It'd be easy. I wasn't sure what happened, but Gori-chan seemed to have won Selin over. And so, village chief, I'd like to ask for permission to build a beauty salon in this village. A beauty salon? What's that? Selin, who hasn't heard of a beauty salon, asked so while tilting her head. Almost as though Gori-chan was delighted by such a question, she enthusiastically explained it to Selin. A beauty salon is a place you go to make yourself more beautiful. It offers services like hairstyling, makeup, fashion advice, skincare, and more. Oh, first time I've ever heard of such a place. But of course, I've just thought of it recently after all, at novel bin at. Apparently, Gori-chan came up with the concept of beauty salons on her own. I for one haven't heard anyone in this world say the term beauty salon, or even just describe it. In fact, save for a few nobles, the very act of styling one's hair or putting on makeup was not at all a common thing. Not even barbershops were common. In at least the village, there was not a single barbershop in business. Everyone cut their own hair or they had a family member cut it for them. With a beauty salon, I can make everyone pretty like me? Is that so? Selin was quite absorbed with the concept of a beauty salon, but when Gori-chan said that, it was as if Selin awoke from a dream. She probably thought that if the end goal was to be like Gori-chan, she was better off refraining from the service. Don't worry, by the time I'm done with you, you'll be utterly gorgeous. What if Selin starts putting on thick makeup, wearing frilly dresses, and also become buff, macho even? While worrying about that, I suddenly remembered something. Oh, yeah, I'll use that one then. The village's level went up recently, and thanks to that, I was able to build new kinds of facilities. That included a beauty salon. Beauty salon, 200 PTS, a facility for improving one's appearance. Make everyone pretty. Who knows, maybe through the facility's features and effects, the kind of beauty that Gori-chan strives for would be a bit more normal. Oh my, it's all so wonderful. Can I really use this place? Gori-chan was so overjoyed when she saw the pretty and primarily pink building. So much so that she and her twin tails swung left and right. Yup, but can I ask you to listen to your customers' requests regarding how they want to made prettier? But of course, I'll never be so conceited to think that my opinions are the only thing that matters. While hoping that would indeed be the case, I entrusted Gori-chan of the beauty salon. Hey, Luke. When I turned around toward the sound of Selin's voice, I accidentally let out a confused voice. I was pretty sure it was Selin who called out to me, but to my surprise, I found an unfamiliar beautiful girl there. So? The girl was fidgeting and acted as though she was embarrassed. Wait, are you perhaps Selin? Of course I am. Who else do you think it is? Selin has become so pretty, I didn't even recognize her. I thought it was another person entirely. Her blue hair now had a fluffy kind of perm. She wore clothes that accentuated her feminine cuteness, and her face had a moderate and natural-looking makeup. Yufufu? She's absolutely gorgeous, ain't she, village chief? Gori-chan? Could this be the work of Gori-chan? I was anxious that Gori-chan would turn Selin into a mini Gori-chan of sorts, but it seemed like she made Selin prettier in the way that the latter preferred. No matter how you look at her, she's divine, right? Why, I'd say she's the finest work of art I've ever done in my entire beauty-dedicated life. I can't really explain it, but my techniques were so much more effective this time around. The facility I built definitely helped in this, but it must be said that Gori-chan's skills were a vital factor as well. This won't do, chief. You've got to say your impressions out loud and to the person herself. Gori-chan grabbed hold of my shoulders and effortlessly pushed me toward Selin. She's so strong. Selin, I think, you're super cute today. In an instant, Selin's face grew bright red. And then, while fidgeting like she did a while ago, she whispered something. Cece, can you say that one more time? Wait, now even I'm embarrassed? You're super cute. Almost at the same time, Selin and Gori-chan shifted their bodies from side to side, almost as though they were squirming. Youth. What I'd give to have someone tell me The mood's kinda ruined now. What's the meaning of this? Suddenly someone else interjected. That someone was Milia. How can that frumpish girl suddenly become? Who are you calling frumpish? GHH, I hate to admit it, but I'm at a slight disadvantage right now. What do you mean slight? I'm clearly wiping the floor with you. A giant, heir, I meant Gori-chan then approached the frustrated Milia. Do you want to become more beautiful as well? Who are you? Hey, Gori-chan, don't? You should just leave that one alone. Selen tried to stop Gori-chan, but Gori-chan responded by shaking her head. Sorry dear, I can't do that. I can't choose sides. I'm an evangelist of beauty, you see. No. A look of helplessness appeared on Selen's face. Now, Milia-chan, was it? Let's go. Your raw beauty's also amazing, but by the time I'm done with you, you'll be divine. Whwa? Milia was still half in doubt, but Gori-chan carried her away anyway. Selen, meanwhile, dropped to her knees and hanged her head down. What do you think, Luke-sama? Milia has achieved a transformation that wouldn't lose out to Selen's. Her long, black hair was glossier and silkier than usual, her makeup made her look more mature, and the daring dress she was wearing accentuated her outstanding proportions as much as was possible. Her dress had a window around her chest that made her cleavage visible. It also had a slit in the skirt part, which exposed one of her long and beautiful legs. While Selen's new look sought to improve her cuteness, Milia's sought to improve her attractiveness. Each one's new look seemed to match the person's strong points. I think, you're super attractive today. Upon saying so, Milia's mature face became childlike as it turned red. It was then that Selen interjected. Tell me, Luke, which one of us do you prefer? Phew, you'll pick me, right, Luke-sama? No, you'll pick me, won't you? No way, it's gotta be me at novel bin at. Please don't fight. What a dilemma this is, village chief. I know full well what you're feeling right now. I myself can't choose which masterpiece of mine I prefer. Gori-chan decided on her own that our troubles were similar. But worry not. I have a solution for us. A solution? Her muscular arm raised high, Gori-chan made an enthusiastic declaration. The beauty salon ran by Gori-chan became well known throughout the village right away. The villagers, especially the women, were half in doubt at first of Gori-chan's services. No, actually, they were fully in doubt. However, when they knew of Selen and Milia's transformations, they immediately rushed to the beauty salon. I'm so flattered, but sorry, I can't really help anyone else right now. Gori-chan was the only one to provide the service, so it was understandable that she couldn't see to everyone. It has gotten to the point that one has to reserve an appointment several months in advance first. Gori-chan's solution to this was to take on a pupil. Well, given that the concept of beauty treatments was still new in this world, getting a pupil might not be so easy. And even if someone was interested enough about it, getting them to a point where they would actually be helpful would take some time. More likely than not, Gori-chan would have to settle to hiring an employee that would do simple tasks for her. Or so I thought at novel bin at. Welcome. When I stopped by the beauty parlor after a little while of not doing so, I was greeted by a group of muscular men. Moreover, these men all wore thick makeup as well as frilly pink dresses. There's more of Gori-chan now? Ho, these are my pupils, chief. These were apparently the ones Gori-chan hired to help her out. Teehee, it's all thanks to manager Gori-chan that we've awoken to the world of beauty. Well, walk down this path until our last breath. They're even talking like Gori-chan. On closer inspection, I noticed that the employees were in the midst of skillfully cutting the female customer's hair. It hasn't been long yet they had learned this much already. I'm done. Look at yourself, aren't you just gorgeous? Wait, is this really me? You didn't recognize even your own face? I absolutely did not. Whoa, my husband's gonna be so pleased. Thank you very much. Each and every one of the customers that they worked on left the salon happy, satisfied, and above all, better looking than before. Like that, the women in the village were transformed by the beauty salon. It was a rude thing to say out loud, but a lot of our female villagers, especially those who were refugees or from poor places, to be rather unstylish. Now though, all I could find were beautiful people. There might be more gorgeous women here than in the royal capital. That's not to say that all villagers were unstylish before, of course. The clothes made by the clothing-focused workshop were fashionable by themselves, but the problem was that only a few women could carry those clothes well. That changed primarily because of Gori-chan's efforts. Nowadays, even ordinary people were caring for a thing such as fashion. Rumors of the beauty salon soon spread outside of the village, causing women from all over to visit the village. Some of them even visited the village expressly for it. The rumors also made people wanting to become one of Gori-chan's macho pupils to travel to the village. It's still popular, huh? Silius murmured so while looking at the newly established beauty salon in the village. Today as well, a large number of women have lined up before the salon. Even my sister is engrossed by it. Truly, what incredible sway it has. His sister used to not care about her appearance at all, but ever since she went to the salon and got herself fancied up, even she was paying attention to her looks. Despite being his sister, Silius couldn't help but admit to himself that Selen indeed got prettier. At times, he even found his sister's new appearance to be distracting during their training sessions. What's that shop? Men's beauty salon? No. It's one thing for women to care about looks, but men, we don't need to at all. Silius shook his head when he found out that there was now a salon exclusively for men. But what if I make myself look better? Will Phileas know? In the first place, she's not the kind to care for looks, even for own self. Why would she, when she's so beautiful already? Is that you, Silius Dono? Upon suddenly hearing from behind him the voice of the person he was thinking about, Silius unintentionally jumped up. Did she hear me just now? Worried about that, Silius slowly turned his head. I just tried that popular beauty treatment place, but what do you think? Does it suit me? What he saw was an even more beautiful Philia. He was so shocked by her that he forgot his earlier worry. Actually, he was shocked more than that. Silius Dono? My name is Shibble. I am a manager in the royal capital. Though I say so myself, the fact of the matter was that I was a very talented person who has achieved much ever since I was young. Thanks to that, I now lived in a large mansion in a high-end area within the capital with a beautiful wife that everyone was envious of. Hey, darling, where are we going to spend our vacation this year? Oh yeah, well, how about we go to that wasteland village in the rumors? A wasteland village? You haven't heard of it? The wasteland I'm talking about is in the northernmost point of the former Albert territory. It was only recently that they managed to finally build a city there, but apparently, many have already moved there. I also heard that life there is so comfortable, you won't want to live anywhere else. It sounds wonderful. But that place is so far away, isn't it? Well, there's this thing called trains. It's several times faster than a horse carriage, so if we take that, we'll be there in no time. Trains are real. I heard another lady in a recent party talk about that, but the way she described it, I just thought she was joking around. My wife's eyes were sparkling as she said so. What kind of city do you think it is? I'm so excited. Phew, me too. But no matter how much they say that place has developed, at the end of the day, it's still a small town in the middle of nowhere. Once they see a woman like you, jaws will be dropping to the ground. Oh, darling. And so, my wife and I had decided to travel to the wasteland city via the train at Novel Bin Adat. When we arrived in the underground station in the capital. Whoa, how'd they dig this much space underground? Honey, look there. I'm pretty sure that's the train. It's so big. That's what we're going ride? We saw a large metallic object. We were still doubtful that thing would move, but nonetheless we took our designated seats. To ride a train, one needed to purchase a ticket beforehand. However, due to the demand, tickets have become considerably expensive. That said, it was still next to nothing to me. Darling, it's starting move? It is. Despite thinking so, I became unsure if we were truly moving forward after only a little while. The only thing we could see through the windows in the train was the darkness of the underground, so it almost seemed like we were stationary. Is this really taking us to the wasteland city? It should be, but our excitement soon became boredom. While my wife decided to take a nap, I decided to read a book. Despite the train we were riding stopping at multiple so-called railway stations along the way, we finally made it to our destination. We believed it was our destination, at least. Is this really our destination? I believe so, honey. Still skeptical, we alighted from the train. The atmosphere in this station was a bit different than where we boarded, but overall, there was barely any difference. However, once we finished climbing the stairs to go above ground, we saw an incredible sight. What is this city? Darling, there's so many tall buildings? And everything's so clean. It was a metropolis that was clearly unlike the royal capital. A tactless person might even say that it was grander than even the capital. Are we truly in a wasteland right now? As someone who was born and raised in the capital, a sense of rivalry with this city formed within me. Sure, their buildings are impressive and new, but their people? I heard their people are composed of only refugees and immigrants from poor villages, so definitely, none of them are as elegant and refined as my wife. My wife and I gasped together. After all, we saw beautiful women passing by. It wasn't just some of one or two, it was each and every woman who happened to pass by. Well, in terms of base features, my wife would still win, but through their healthy skin, their makeup, their hairstyle, and their clothes, they managed to achieve a level of beauty that was almost sparkling. My expectation was that everyone in this remote city would be envious of my wife's beauty, but reality hit me back like this. In contrast to me though, my wife was in a childlike awe. Wow, you look so beautiful. I don't suppose you can share what you did to get that beautiful, will you? Before I knew it, she approached a passing woman and asked her so. What initiative, I thought. I understand it now, darling. They said that if I go to this beauty salon place, I can get pretty like them. Beauty salon? When I heard my wife say so, I was able to pull myself together. I see. So, that place can make you even more beautiful than you are now? Yup. Lovely, isn't it? And so, we immediately set off toward that beauty salon. Oh, come. Huh? You discovered some ruins beneath the capital. Yup, I found it by accident when I was trying to build railways underground. I tried to investigate, but soon came across monsters and traps. It's almost like a dungeon. I was talking telepathically with the body double stationed in the royal capital. I see now why you want some help. Yup, after all, the village has many people who are experienced with dungeons thanks to the one there. When I inquired further, it seemed like even the king had no knowledge on the existence of those ruins. At best, the scholars theorized based on remaining records that it could be the ruins of an ancient empire that existed long before the founding of the kingdom. Well, if the king asks for it, I can't really say no. It's less that the king is asking this of us, and it's more that Raoul is insisting that we do it. Raoul, my brother, was currently staying in the capital so that he could help in making the kingdom's army stronger. Thanks to his efforts, he seemed to be relied upon by even the king. I think I'd like to hear the full story. Alright, ready? Raoul looked around at everyone present at the entrance of the ruins and asked so. The monsters here seem strong and the traps quite troublesome. It's better for us to assume that this is a high difficulty dungeon. Be on your guard. Wait a minute, why are you acting like you're the leader? Selen pointed that out in a bit of an aggressive tone. They were enemies on the battlefield not too long ago, so them not being on the best of terms was quite understandable. However, despite the past, we have now formed an investigation team together for the aforementioned ruins. The team was composed mostly of our villagers though. Raoul's side only had him and one other person. Huh? Because I'm the strongest one here, that's why. And need I remind you, the king gave me the rank of general for my help in rebuilding the kingdom's army. Sure, but most of the members here are from the team that I lead. Plus, I have dungeon experience and you don't. Of the two of us, I think I should be the leader. Now, don't fight, you two. I wedged myself between the two who were glaring at each other. We're going to be working with each other, so let's all get along, yeah. I tried to calm the tense atmosphere, but when I did, the two looked at me at the same time. Tisk, if you want us to get along, why don't you lead? I wouldn't complain if that were the case. Yeah, I don't mind if it's you, Luke. Me? I was suddenly nominated as the leader. Moreover, for maybe the first time, the two were in agreement. I also think that's a good idea. I don't have any objections to that. The chief is the best for the job. All of you two, Philia-san, Cilius-kun, and then Noel-kun also agreed. Aothis is not really my specialty, but despite my uneasiness, I figured that me leading would still be better than Selen and Raoul being at each other's throats the whole time. By the way, I was present here only through transferring my consciousness into a body double. This way, I could explore the ruins without any danger to me whatsoever. If not for this method, Selen would have never allowed me to join the investigation team. Well, let's see, Alexan, is it okay if your party goes in the front? Yup, that's perfectly okay. We're probably the most experienced in dungeon diving among us anyway. Noel-kun, please be in the front lines as well. Understood. And so, we planned our formation. Alexan and Noel-kun were to take the forefront at Novel bin at. Dil-san and Gai-san were next. Hazina-san and Kamura-san who had the labyrinth exploration gift were to follow. After them would be me and Selen. Philia-san would be paired with an elf with outstanding healing capabilities named Kurin-san. Cilius-kun would be right behind them. And then, taking the tail end were Raoul and Marin-san, a spear-wielding woman that was serving as Raoul's adjutant. Our team was composed of 13 people. Taking into account narrow corridors and other such things, we were actually pushing the limits of the number of people we should bring. Bringing in more people could potentially do more harm than good. Oh, in case it needed to be said, I used teleportation to get all of us here. Our entry point to the ruins was in a corner of a railway station built underneath the royal capital. This entry point we would be using was not the ruins' intended entrance. Rather, it was simply the part where the railway system happened to ran into when it was being expanded by my double. In fact, when we entered it, we found ourselves in the corner of a corridor. The corridor's floor and walls seemed to be made of stone. It's so dark here we can't see anything. I guess it's safe to assume that this place is man-made and not a dungeon. Alexan, the experienced adventurer, said so. He apparently had explored ruins like this one before. Let me provide some light. Gai-san, who possessed the white magic gift, said so and then made the tip of the staff he held glow. Controlling light was a kind of white magic. Thanks to that, we were able to see further ahead. It was then that we noticed a silhouette in the distance. By what I could make of it, it seemed to almost be wriggling. They sure didn't waste time to show up. Raoul said so sneeringly. The silhouette that approached us while making eerie, rattling noises turned out to be a skeleton. When that became clear to us, Hazina immediately screamed. A skeleton? Yes. Ruins like this tend to have many undead creatures, including skeletons. The one to inform us of that was Marin-san at the back. A woman of about 20 years of age, she provided Raoul with regular support as his adjutant. She seemed to be a stern beauty, but then again, she had dog-like ears. Yes, she looked like she descended from a group of people called beastmen. At any rate, even though the skeleton was nothing but a, skeleton, it moved quite quickly. Thankfully, Noel-kun was already prepared to bash it away with his shield. Alexan then followed up by swinging his large sword down to where the skeleton fell. His blow was so powerful that the enemy's skull up to its ribs were smashed to pieces while the rest of it scattered to the surrounding. It was unable to move at all afterwards. Katakadakada. They're all coming to greet us, huh? New ones began emerging from the shadows one after the other. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them? Here I go. Fire javelin? Hazina-san said so and fired off a magic attack. Her spear made of flames shot forward and burned all the skeletons ahead. More skeletons appeared as we continued forward, but none of them posed any real threat to us at Novel bin at. Most were dispatched right away by Alexan's party, so Selen grew kind of bored. HMP, another weakling. Skeletons also approached us from behind, but Raoul quickly took care of them. Yup, having Raoul as an ally sure is helpful. This way, Kamura-san told us the direction we should take. It might be because he was more experienced in this kind of stuff now, but he was clearly more assertive than he was before. This place was definitely labyrinthine, but thanks to him, we were making progress. UA. After some good progress, we heard some moans ahead of us. Wah, so gross? Zombies, huh? The zombies in front of us had pale yet blood-covered faces, tattered clothes, and gouged skin here and there that exposed even their bones. Zombies were undead monsters that retained more of their previous selves, at least when compared to the skeletons earlier. Huh? Despite being slow, the zombies were a bit durable. That said, Alexan's large sword still managed to slice them cleanly in two. In addition, Gai-san also used his staff to easily crush the zombies' heads. Even the zombies posed no threat to us apparently. Huh, what's the matter, Kamuru-san? When I noticed that Kamuru-san still hasn't told us which direction we should take, I called out to him. Sorry, it just looks like that to be able to proceed. There's a gimmick we must solve first. I followed his line of sight and saw a metal fence. Beyond that fence was the continuation of the path we were following. There was a series of symbols written on the wall adjacent to the metal fence. We've seen switches with those symbols before, haven't we? Yeah, we have seen them. It looks like we have to activate those to pass through. Kamuru-san was joyous earlier in guiding us, but all of a sudden, he has turned quite apologetic. He was probably thinking that if he had thought about it beforehand, we could have proceeded without doing any backtracking. Yeah, but the order in activating them seems to be also important. I see. So, we would have needed to come here anyway to know that order. It was quite the mischievous contraption. To which, Raoul immediately spouted, what a drag. Yeah, normally, it would have been quite a drag to backtrack all the way there. I said so while grinning. But of course, I can just teleport back to press them. I have been using territory takeover the entire time, making each point we passed a part of the village. Thanks to that, I could use teleport even here. Why, you can do even that? Luke-sama's so amazing, isn't he? Alexan and his party's faces looked as though they were about to cry foul. You know what, why bother doing that? I grabbed the arms of the nearby Selen and Silius gun, and then used teleportation. In the next moment, we were on the other side of the fence. I feel like we've cheated somehow, but what matters is we're through it, I guess. No one replied, but I continued to teleport everyone pair by pair. Like this, we passed through the fence without bothering to solve its gimmick. Much like a dungeon, the ruins we were exploring seemed to be divided by floors. And the deeper we go, the more wicked the monsters we faced. This guy's a bit strong, ain't he? They move well, I'll give them that. Alexan and Selen were currently in a fierce fight against skeleton swordsmen at Novel bin Adat. Unlike the skeletons we encountered at the beginning, these ones' movements and sword skills were on another level. That being said, they were still no match against the best of the village. When Alexan found an opening, he immediately swung down his large sword against the skull of one of the skeletons and smashed it. Meanwhile, Selen used her ice magic to immobilize the skeletons she was facing and then quickly chopped off their heads. While they were busy like that though, skeleton swordsmen rushed toward us who were in the middle of our formation. Philia-san fired arrows that shattered some bones, but for the most part, the skeletons were unperturbed. Sigh. Yeah, arrows really don't work well against skeletons, does it? I'll leave it to me. Without wasting a moment, Silius Gun jumped up front and crossed swords with the skeleton swordsman. That's it, Silius Gun. You have to make yourself look good in front of Philia-san. UAAA. Stronger zombies also showed up. This time, the zombies were on all fours and were even crawling on the walls as they rushed towards us. These ones are so scary? Well, they are undead. Even after Hazuna-san tried to burn them down, a few still marched forward. As such, Gai-san joined in and whacked a few with his staff. I then looked behind us and saw that there was another group of zombies there. After Raoul decapitated one of those zombies. Raoul-sama? What? A severed head of a zombie tried to bite Raoul at his legs, but Marin-san quickly stabbed it with her spear to finish it off. Ha, you here to make things a little interesting? The next monster to appear wasn't simply a stronger version of a skeleton or a zombie. It was a moving full-body armor that made a loud clanking sound with each step it took. It was a kind of undead monster called living armor. It was the spirit of a fallen soldier who dwelled inside their armor because they still wanted to continue fighting. Because it was a monster that was basically an armor, its defenses were pretty high. Alexan managed to land a direct hit on its helm and dented it there, but the monster simply attacked back as though nothing happened. Hazuna-san also tried to burn it, but her magic didn't have much effect. Then, how about this? Gai-san shouted so as he thrusted his light enveloped staff into the living armor. His attack didn't seem to be an overly powerful blow, but for some reason, the enemy suddenly stopped moving and its armor pieces scattered into the floor.